Yeah, I mean, the one thing that really caught my eye was like 64 players looking for their first FNCS finals. It's like, we throw out random numbers out there like, oh, 203 FNCS finals. Well, what the heck does that mean, guys? And it's just like, yeah, I mean, that number doesn't really mean anything. But when you compare it to group number 2, like Zeke said, 302, that's 100 less total FNCS finals appearances just in this group in comparison to yesterday.
Test.
Groups are just so different. It's crazy how some of that works out.
Yeah, man. And let's take a look at some of these trios. We kind of break down a couple notable ones for you guys. We want to start with Reet, Cooper, and Curly. So, yeah, every time we say Reet, Kelly's like, yeah, let's go. Obviously, these guys, newly formed trio. Can you talk to me a little bit about them?
Yeah, I mean, when you say newly formed trio, they literally played for the first time the Performance Evaluation Cup the day before the play-ins, and they got 43rd in that tournament. So it was looking a little questionable of how this team was going to be performing in the play-ins. But as you guys saw in the stats right there, they ended off in 3rd place. And of course, you got Dignitas Cooper, the global champion with Miro. And then you have Reet, who at one point was the W Key King of NA West, joined by Curly, who has just been rising up the ranks recently. Honestly, Vivid, I'm really excited about the prospects for this trio.
Yeah, I mean, 3rd in the plans is an incredible feat for this trio. And you want to talk about buzzer beaters, right? Kelly was mentioning how this trio just recently formed right before FNCS started. Well, what about a little bit of a peripheral change? Reet was like, you know what, listen, I'm tired of this controller stuff. I feel like I can't get any storm surge damage dealt with it. I'm going to keyboard and mouse. Stayed on that for like a week or 2, ended up deciding that, hey, listen, I cannot find any teammates with this. Like, really, nobody wants to play with somebody who's developing on new peripherals. Went back to the controller, Reed's back on controller. I'm excited to see what this trio can do today.
Okay. I vibe with it, right? Do we think then that they could make it through on a victory royale? Do we think maybe they're just going to target consistency? Where are we at?
Watching through the plans, I watched one of their best games, and Curly and Cooper were a duo from around Zone 7, and they still got the victory royale, and they even held high ground for majority of the end game. So I think, you never really know how these end games are going to go. Maybe you're going to lose a player. Being able to win the game as a duo is a good sign that they can do it again.
Yeah, there you go. Kelly's always going to be favored in that victory route, especially when we're talking about Reek. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if this was a consistency style team. I mean, yeah, being able to play the high ground in the play-ins, usually that kind of play style maybe switches up when it comes down to the group stages. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw this duo kind of just hanging out in the mid-ground of some of these layers and just picking up all of the eliminations.
Okay. I want to see that this week, right? Let's get aggressive. Let's get some action going. I'm for that. I'm for that for sure. Let's talk about another trio, Kanata, Bolts, and Sphinx. I mean, listen, longtime veterans of the scene here. We all know and love Kanata. You pair them up with Bolts and Sphinx. What can we expect out of them here in Group 3?
Another kind of newer trio, and as it goes with NAC, a lot of these trios do like to kind of switch things up. The roster swaps are quite crazy, but Kanata, Bolts, and Sphinx I think has a lot of potential, and not just because they got 4th place in the play-ins, but Kanata has to be just one of the smartest players that we have seen. Time and time again, he's able to come up with these incredible storm surge strats, and when I was looking at the drop map, they're landing Hopeful Heights in that southeastern corner, just completely desolate from the rest of the lobby, and I was a little concerned of how their storm surge was going to be handled. But Vivid, once again, if anyone's going to be able to come up with a strategy, it's going to be Kanata.
Oh yeah, 100%, right? This trio, though, I just love it so much because, like, you got Sphinx, who had an incredible season number 1. Of course, that trio, Video, Cooper, and Sphinx, they split up, which is why this trio is even able to form in the first place. And then Bolts kind of had this surge where everybody was like, whoa, look at this guy's mechanics. He's pretty good. And Kanata, who likes to coin himself as somebody who has been able to be on both sides of the coin, right? IGL, Fragger. We gotta love Kanata for that. But there's something on the line here today, Zeke. And I know Kanata's gonna have a big smile on his face while he is competing. Because as of right now, as it stands, Kanata is 25 for 25 when it comes to this FNCS finals appearances. So if he makes it through today, he's gonna be 26 for 26. What a record he kind of holds on to right there.
Let's go, Kanata. This is your day, right? No problem, no pressure. Let's just slap the do-rag on, be do-rag nada, and let's just go make it 26 for 26. All right, there we go. I've also wrote it in the script, so it can't not happen. But, we'll see how things go after these 5 games. For now, though, why don't we toss it over to our casters to say hello. It's Monster D-Face and Jacob PR.
That's right. Yeah, I'm ready for this action. Definitely ready for Kanata and seeing what he's going to be bringing to the table. I mean, Jacob, you saw in the weeks leading up, he made these decisions to play with his team for himself. He is fully locked in, and he wants to make the best appearance that he's ever had.
I know, and you got like a new fired up Bolts. I know a lot of people talked about him maybe taking a little bit lackadaisy. I think he's here to really prove a point, but we're talking about top heavy teams. Let's throw Day into the mix as well. 13 FNCS final appearances, 2 FNCS titles. He's playing with Aloe and Yan. They might not have that much experience, but if I'm trusting in Day, I'm trusting him 100%. I think this is a team we could see in the finals.
Yeah, absolute OG, someone who's, of course, been around for quite some time. And again, he's no stranger to these types of heavy set lobbies. So with all that being said, we're just gearing up here. We're getting ready, Zeke, and we're ready for that action.
We're not too far away, Monster DFAs. We are not too far away at all. Let's continue this conversation, though, with more trios. We wanted to highlight here Pagers, Acorn, and Poyo.
Oh,
yes, they are here in group number 3. So if there's a coin and Peterbot is one side, Poyo is the other, and basically these other 2 players are the same, right? Guys, they've already secured a spot going to the Global Championship later on this year. So finals, they don't really need to do that. But of course, this is Poyo, right? They're going to aim for that. They could be looking to play spoiler for a lot of trios in Group 3.
This trio is just so interesting, and going all the way back to their formation in Major 1, where for whatever reason they just weren't on anyone's radar. No one had them for first, second, and sometimes even third on the top 5 lists of who could win Major 1. And Acorn, Agers, and Poyo, you can see from the Div Cup finals, this is very similar to what we saw from Major 1, where they are consistently in that top 5 every time the finals come around. And you can't talk about this trio without talking about the elephant in the room, where Poyo did disband and try to go back with Peterbot and Cold. And the first 3 Div Cups we see right there should have an asterisk on it, because this is actually the scores that they got with Ritual. But due to the constraints of the rules that have been set, Poyo is now back with Acorn and Agers, and we saw just how absolutely incredible they were in Major 1. Agers and Poyo are 2 incredible fraggers. Acorn is an incredibly intelligent IGL, and I mean, the solo power from Agers alone could carry him into the top 5 against these other trios. Can they do it again, though, Vivid? Are they going to be trying to do it again, or are they just kind of, you know, already confidently making their way to globals?
I mean, the defending FNCS champs, I would not expect them to let their foot off the gas at all. I mean, we've got Acorn, who I feel like last year he started getting his name thrown into the hat of like the top IGLs of all time, right? And you can kind of see in how he's performed, right? I mean, getting first, winning an FNCS. He's not really faltering under that pressure at all, which is what I really love to see. And then, of course, you know, you have Polio on the other side of that, who is back to back to back to back right now with FNCS victories, and he doesn't seem to be faltering at all. I mean, the trio is just so good individually. Somehow, you know, this trio form, like Kelly was mentioned, and it seems like they just mesh together so well. You know, of course, their div placements, Kelly mentioned it, weeks 1, 2, and 3, they weren't even actually playing together, but weeks 4 and 5, even after splitting up, coming back, drama happened. Second and third, still, like, nothing can seemingly put this trio down right now. We got to keep an eye on them.
I love, too, that yesterday when we had, like, the stats, right, we're comparing groups 2 to group 3. Yesterday we had 7 FNCS wins, right? And today we have 17. Yesterday, Muzz Yapko Rise had 3 of the 7. This trio, Agers, Acorn, Poyo, have 10 of 17. Wow. So there's quite a bit of experience coming into this. Do we think that they could just win game 1? I don't want that because I want to see them play, but yes or no?
I love that you bring that up, because we're kind of getting a little bit of a repeat of what we saw from Major 1. It was Acorn, Agers, and Poyo versus Kanata, Bolts, and then another player that I can't remember right now. But it actually was them, 3v3 in the final game of game 1, and it was Kanata that came out on top. And then, of course, Acorn, Agers, and Poyo won game 2. Can they do it again, or are they going to finally get some vengeance on Kanata? We'll have to wait and see.
Oh, man, I would love to see Kanata win game 1. That'd be like the perfect, just like, hey, remember this? Now it's my turn. You mentioned high ground there. What's interesting is we've kind of been watching and following the action. We are so used to, we kind of touched on it a little bit yesterday, but we're so used to seeing high ground win games. But what we're seeing is that a lot of players are actually utilizing the low ground to win games. How are you guys feeling about this like low ground versus high ground situation right now?
Oh, God. I mean, you know, I think especially with the group stages, they're just so different than what we see in the FNCS finals that, Vivid, there's really any opportunity, any position could get you a victory royale.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely looking like it's a little bit of a toss-up this season, right? We always see like the high ground teams. Sometimes they just don't have any mats to kind of hold that position for this game. And the low ground kind of seems like it's always in that clutch spot for the win right there. But as you can see here, this is how our games got kind of split up in group number 1.
Yeah, this was for Group 1, and Group 2 was also just as chaotic. And honestly, it was a little different where once you went for high ground, someone was going to steal it from you. And I actually want to look at Group 1, what we saw from games 1 and 2. The minor adjustments that we see from Vert's trio is what can make or break these teams getting that victory royale. Taki, Vert, and Isho, they go for high ground just a little bit early around Zone 8. And because they went for high ground early, you can see just how low on mats they are, which is what allowed Death's trio to be able to go and steal height. Vert was able to regain it back, but just look how low they are. No heals, no mats. And when you're going up against Chimp's trio, you would just never are going to win that 2v3 fight. Which takes me to game 2, where once again, we see Vert and Taki's trio take high ground, but this time it's just a minute later. They have way more mats, they have way more heals, and you can see Percent once again going for the height steal, but Taki and Vert are way more prepared this time. And then once it does go down to the 3v3, they have way more heals, way more mats, and then of course we had this incredible Taki triple elim. It was such a great example of how just minor adjustments in the end game can be the difference between a victory royale and second place.
Whew. I mean, see, sometimes we talk about preparation over the course of a week. They're showing their ability to adapt from game to game. That's just how good some of these Fortnite professionals are. Always amazing to see.
And that's why they're here competing, and I'm here getting ready to toss game number 1 because it is that time. 5 games ahead of us. We're looking for the victory out or to end the day in the top 5 in consistency. Let's kick off the competition. Casters, take it away.
Thank you, Zeke, and that's right. Looking at the roster, it does seem like we are looking at a very top-heavy type of group staging here, but Jacob, as we saw yesterday, there are going to be people inevitably that could pull that victory out through and make their first finals.
Yeah, I feel like almost the trend throughout the 2 groups. A lot of those top-heavy teams that you expect to get those victory royals have not been doing that. They've been qualifying through consistency, and we get the chance to see if that trend continues because game number 1 is ready. This is it right here, the start of the last group stage. And by any means, Monster, is nobody's FNCS over today, but it is going to get exponentially harder having to go through that last chance qualifier. So if you don't want to have to go through all that chaos that every other team, every other division gets to access, it is right here, right now on the day. Win or consistency is the goal.
Yeah, we saw on the drop map kind of leading into it, there's a couple of hot spots that are going to be in contention. This is one of them. Prime City has a little bit of action. The Shiny Shafts might have some players looking to be contesting there as well. So all in all, this is just the start for a few and the end for others as DV, Tofi, and Tyler kick things off here, find themselves a quick elimination here to kick off their game, forcing Lays and Cully out of the drop here. And all of a sudden now, they seem to have the strong lead.
I was gonna say for a quick moment, but they're able to turn around, get a knock onto at least once, but it comes at a sacrifice. Another one of those players are gonna go down, so that just kind of means that Solo just has a long road ahead of him if he's gonna get his teammate back into the game, especially since now that Whiffy Wharf, the team that landed there uncontested, is now moving on over to third party.
Looking at that third party team, they're just sizing up the competition, trying to evaluate what all is going down here. You have a chance, but Bullcut Tyler now needs to go ahead and resituate himself here.
It's just one of those tough situations because they're not landing on an actual POI. They're landing at a split drop where all of their loot comes from that actual spot where they land at and then the path along the way. If any of that gets stolen, they're going to have to hunt elsewhere, as it does look like Chaos is going to go down, but Noah plays and Kaz is going to be able to clean up those eliminations. And what was a contested fight at C4, it's going to continue to be so because a third party is immediately starting to ruin all this fun.
Noah plays, showing that he continuously is improving himself off these draw spawn fights, right? Last season, we saw a little bit of Noah plays, Chaos, and Kaz's. Now we're seeing them kind of return here and looking to be in pretty decent form. However, can't time that third party any better than that. That team is going to be pretty happy about this quick pickup here. Kaz is going for a very risky potential pickup there. We'll see if that ends up being successful. Here's the man of the hour. Azers, Acorn, and Boyo, this team right here, of course, set up to succeed here in this lobby. One of the few teams that we do know, of course, will be in attendance of the Global Championship, but we all know every season there's a lot on the line.
It's just constantly changing. And that Seaport fight, you know, if you look at the drop map before the tournament actually started, kind of was supposed to be uncontested, so already things changing up before game one as it starts. As you see, Brutal Boxcars, the mountain that a lot of teams kind of hunt for Surge, is already going to be occupied by 2 different teams, just showing how proactive everybody is trying to be in order to get that Surge, because it allows for a lot of flexibility in your game plan. We saw it throughout last weekend's Group 1. We saw it yesterday in Group 2. If you have a lot of Storm Surge, you're going to have a lot of flexibility. As we jump on board Sphinx, Kanata bolts uncontested at Hopeful Heights, which means they get the surrounding land as well.
Definitely a pretty solid draw spot for them right here. Plenty of territory to work with. Teams contested off to the north make this even better for them for their rotates a little later on. We'll see how that ends up happening out. Getting back to Noah and Kaz here, so unsuccessful with the pickup at the reboot van. Seems like them sticking around has given Mike, Dom, and Logan the chance and the opportunity to go ahead and take this fight on favorable terms for themselves. And I genuinely expected them to give it up, right? Maybe you would have thought that they would have kind of backed out, but Logan putting up a great fight there. We'll end up winning it. Trades on Noah's side. Unfortunately, gets him sent right back to lobby, and we'll just have to hype him up for the next game. Round 1 for now is over for them. But hey, it happens to the best of us, right? Can't make the best decisions all the time. Sometimes you got to risk it. In the end, Noah's going to have to hit the evaluation board on that one.
Yeah, going in, the thought were uncontested, so at least now going into the next 4 games, they're a little bit more prepared of what's to come. Aoxy, Jojo Fishy, and Pikes are one of only 2 trios in this lobby who played together in last season's finals. And you know, one of the other teams yesterday that stayed together but ended up reforming before play-ins, that was our game 1 winner, Muzz, Yapko, and Rise yesterday. So hopefully a lot of that chemistry, being able to build it over months' time, really proves to be worth it in the end as we continue to jump around a lot of these early game fights. And already today in this Group 3 monster, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like the action is flowing just a little bit more quickly than our previous 2 other groups.
Yeah, things are off to a pretty fast start, if I do say so myself. Look, 3 teams already taken out, sent back to lobby, and I mean, we're just touching zone number 2, so the action is definitely on par for the course here. Take a look at on-site Skizor. Looking pretty well on-site, playing these side angles here, fishing for quick tags. Meanwhile, let's call him Triple Low, looking for anything on his side.
Yeah, and they know being this isolated at the map, especially on the south side, just outside of Shogun Solitude, Canyons Crossing, a lot of teams that desperately need Surge will begin to try to hover over areas like this to try to look off the mountainside. So I agree with their idea. Scissor on site, and I think that might be Hido going to choose to kind of disengage, especially with the zone moving towards the north. They can think, hey, we positioned well, we played it smart, we get a good spot in towards zone, that Surge will be able to come to us with a well-placed Surge tower.
Yeah, both teams opting to go ahead and move out there. Ooh, nice little tag here. So Laze's trio unsuccessful after winning their drop fight. Taken down pretty quickly by that Whiffy Wharf team, so they didn't let up the pursuit here. Kind of lingering in this area. Bullcut Tyler's team as well haven't quite disappeared just yet either. That's going to be kind of a raging dynamic for the next several games. You can see starting to formulate there. Meanwhile, Dash, Seek, and Veer, very experienced trio, right? One of the few that do have those reps in these types of settings. Are taking control of the Seaport City. This is a great place to find tags. They have control of the high ground as well. It's the most prime position to be in for the time being here.
But it is still pretty early. I think they land over towards the Kappa Kappa factory, and that's where they're kind of rotating in, following the zone towards the north. My only question is how much Storm Surge they currently had. It's going to be early for that one to pop, but it's always a question in the back of a lot of teams' minds. There's another fight breaking out just north of where that seaport actually is. Daxi, Roxanne, and Tenke just kind of pressure into this box fight, trading shots, trying to get the surge. They see the men miss smoke go down on the other side, and that's kind of a big sign of weakness as they continue to try to get their HP up. Splash is going down simultaneously for the shield, just trying to make sure that they don't give any open opportunities with a knock.
Yeah, Phenom looking for an angle here. Daxi's going to get tagged first. Things starting to turn around here for Tonkacito's trio. And do notice there's one trio in the distance, just kind of watching what's unfolding here, but there's such a huge catacomb of builds right now. I don't expect them to jump in.
It's one of those situations, whoever has their backside to that zone is going to be the main targets if those boxes break through. But you see the natural hill on that side of the map covering up some of it. So it's not going to be as easy of an angle that they have, and you see that second player of that third party starting to look elsewhere. He doesn't want to waste too much time. They are spread out. They are trying to get surge, maybe even trying to farm up just a little bit inside of Brutal Boxcars, as this fight is going to slow down. And I like the decision for both of these teams to kind of disengage, because you saw the resources. They do have heals, but it's the materials that they're lacking, and it's a heavy lack of materials.
Well, the action's still continuing here on the east, now on the west. Carbon, Andrew, Baloney in a fight up against Rayboard, KSM, and Liquid on the other side here. This is going to really end up pushing the surge pretty high now, though, as it does seem like this fights, right, are not coming to an end for most of these trios. Even this one here, really, I think, almost telling, right, of the type of roster that we have. There's a lot of players that this is for their first time, maybe a chance, right, at making it to a grand finals lobby. So we're seeing a lot of disengages, a lot of fights not necessarily find their way to a conclusion, and that's going to have its effect here.
Yeah, I think a lot of players that don't necessarily know what it feels like, just kind of trying to play it very, very carefully, especially when those resource count starts to dwindle. You saw a lot of materials in those stacks fight going right out of the window, and they're kind of forced in this situation. If I stay here much longer, more teams will come in. It'll make it exponentially harder not only to get the surge, but to disengage when they finally want to. So you're seeing a lot of those early decisions coming out, and it's obviously going in the hand of disengage. 82 players still left alive, 28 teams still left in this. And if it continues in this trend, Monster, we're going to see Storm Surge earlier and sooner than later in this altercation. If you're not prepared and you don't have that surge, it is not going to be easy to survive.
Well, yeah, Acorn and Agers talking about surge. They need to do something big here as well. They found themselves already on top of this congested seaport city here. There was several teams already in a standoff. Agers the first to cut past them, so they're going to put some teams in between them now, but we'll see.
They should run through this lobby.
Oyo's got full sight lines on this trio here. They know he's there as well. Just taunting at the moment.
And this has kind of been the strategy for Acorn, Agers, and Poyo almost all season long. Since kind of reforming, Poyo joining the boys back, is they land Mass Meadows uncontested. They may not necessarily get everything they want out of the black market, but they're able to use the black market with all of that gold. They're able to hover back and stay in zone much longer than a lot of these other teams because they have a lot of those extra resources. And that's what they do. As soon as teams are rotating in, trying to find their way towards zone, that's when they start to peak the shots. And that's why you see Agers currently going for elevation on the top of Seaport City, because they know they can outlast them in the zone if it comes down to it.
Take a look at this. On-tight Skizor end up pushing this team off the high ground. Off they go with the kneecappers. Quick rotate, quick disengage happening here, but this is all storm action right now, and you can see the effects of the surge potentially looming about. Never mind, those are just artifacts of the storm there.
Yeah, another team that's just basically at the mercy of that black market surge base. They're going to have to figure out if they want to go west around it, then kind of move north, if they want to go east and then move north there. But if they go east, there's a lot more teams stacked up on that side of the lobby. Decisions, and those are little intricacies that are breaking out as Kanata, Bolts, Sphinx finding their way up towards Pump Power. Not in the zone just yet. Kind of biding their time, and I like this trio. You got Kanata, who's kind of a flex, you know, his solo prowess and how aggressive he can be. Bolts winning solo championships, winning the FNCS major right before West turned into Central, reunited on this team with Sphinx. Probably, I think, one of the most unsung heroes when it comes to IGLs. He's won games on the biggest stage, including the Global Championship of years past, and kind of bring it all together, a little bit of practice. This is a team, I feel like, no worries today making that finals. Number 26 for Kanata.
Yeah, very interesting trio dynamic there. We definitely have what I would say is, you know, 3 players that are extremely competent, right? They've all had their moments at the top, all right? And that's what's is going to be the makings of a top-tier team, someone that actually is going to give us a run for the money, if you will, come the final setting. This is a team you wanted to look at, too, though. We got to continue to keep our eyes on Dave's trio. On the other side, we have Edge here with Crook, Bobby. Just outside the Magic Mosses, just kind of hanging out. Huge base situated here. They have eyes on the reboot van, trying to see if anyone's looking to go get a cheeky little pickup. They're here to catch them out the sky.
Yeah, early investment in this positioning is going to be kind of fruitful for them because a lot of the teams are going to have to rotate in. You see Reet, Curly, Cooper doing the same thing, spreading out their surge bases. That way they can cover more ground. HQ, Vantage, Decrypt. They're another one of those teams, 259 above the damage threshold. They're going to have to look over towards the west because you see 2 different teams on top of that mountain, which they know will be ill-advised to try to challenge them for surge.
Nothing opening just yet. Drum gun, the only weapon for Cube to find and fish for tags, is not the best option, but is what it is. We'll see if they end up rotating sooner rather than later. Get a first look at Coop and Reet here. Wow. Playing the Flooded Frogs, pretty spread out. Huge surge damage already somehow accumulated just off of their drop.
1,400 above is shit ton.
I mean, we did see how stacked the north side of the map was, from split drops to Whiffy Wharfs. That's just west of where they actually land. And if you see that surge base on top of an already built tower, especially Reet and Curly stretching out on the other side, they're just kind of content. Uncontested Flooded Frog zone moving in their favor. They really haven't been tested in game number 1 so far, which could be a blessing, could be a curse, depending on how this one plays out. As it does look like a knockdown's coming in. They're trying to chop it all the way down to size, but I don't think there's enough distance to them in the high ground, so not enough fall damage. The shots continue to pour in. Zolpix getting dropped down. 50 shield gone, but his teammate Brutal is the one that desperately needs the help because he has no shield at all.
Yeah, they do end up catching one of those trios there. Getting a little bit of a knock, but it seems like already the recovery was so fast. And this is just going back and forth right here. Zolpix Brutal users just trying their best right now. Talk about a commitment though, Zolpix. Brutal. This trio doesn't really have a lot of mats, so they've kind of spent a lot. And just looking at the map, there is so much happening here. It's just going to be a matter of moments between before another team potentially decides to jump in. But look, Chris is going to be the first of the casualties here. It's Danger Biggest 5 who's kind of playing the low ground right now, but their team's below the surge, so they will be forced to do something here. Brutal's team's got what they wanted from this. Quick elimination, couple pickups, and the damage most importantly. And look, they're off to the races. Try to farm up potentially some more mats and really just play for mids in the end game.
Yeah, the zone's just pulling further and further north. I will say the blessing for Wager and Danger is they have a chance to get Chris back up with that reboot card, with the zone continuously pulling past Brutal boxcars. That's going to be their only real opportunity to get him back because it's relatively early in the game. Only 1 storm damage right now. It is going to transform into 2, so it's almost a now or never situation. You add on the fact they're currently above the damage threshold, and it is going to be the first attempt, but I think that garnered the attention of Jojo, Fishy, and Aoxy.
I gotta say, WagerBot doing pretty good right there, finding the tags. That is the make or break moment right there. Critical moment in this game here. given that their team were desperate for the damage, but oh, not looking good here for Zolpix's trio. They were the first to rotate, but they had Dave's trio hot on their heels, and seems like they found an opportunity, found a knock, but look at this. It was all for the Surge, almost forced into a fight and then sent back to the lobby. So just like that, Surge starts to determine the fate for some. Even a team as good as Dave's trio there. Diego plays trio. Jacob is also below the Surge here, and it's costing them a lot. You can see it weighing heavily on their HP counts right now.
You almost seeing why a lot of these teams are taking that early risk to box fight, because they don't want to end up in this situation with Surge really deciding your entire game plan here with the zones moving further and further away. That is going to be a max pull. Sprite 4, they have 575 and counting above the damage threshold. They just need to figure out a way out of this situation, especially as a duo. It's not going to get easier, but Diego, Ralphie able to find a knock onto one. Fred goes down though, so they lose at least one of their teammates. But there might be a chance if they have the med miss smoke and extra splashes to go for the double revive. But with the zone currently moving, I'm not sure this is going to be a win-win situation for anybody on this side of the zone.
Yeah, they did just enough to kind of ease up the Surge, but then they fall quickly right below. So they have to rotate not only to the safety, but there are a lot of teams kind of in between them and that new safety line. Look, they're just flirting with the threshold right now. Not a great spot to be in by any means. Heals already exhausted, what looks to be from all the trios there.
The only saving grace on this side of the map is if you so happen to have some extra change in your pocket in the form of gold, you can enter into that black market. There's med kits, there's splashes, there's possible HP, and he does have 124. Barely not enough. He has to ask for a little bit of extra change on the side.
Oh, not
they're looking for scraps. They did find one splash, but a tick is going to be a 5 tick. There's almost no hope at survival.
No.
They're going to have to go for team revives, and that's going to be the only hope. But no, now active Storm Surge every 7 seconds. 25 damage. Fred tried to go in, but he doesn't find everything.
Oh, you gotta know better than that. With the storm rolling over, this Surge turning back on, that was a brutal mistake to try to get the pickup. I get it though, right? Like, you want to have your 3-man team. You're so close to safety. You have splashes in the inventory, but my gosh, that zone was just eating them alive. Well, Diego's gonna have to live with that one. They earned a couple of points that game, so it wasn't a zero-sum game, but still one of the 5 prestigious rounds now gone. And that's one thing to think about. We don't really emphasize enough here on the broadcast. You really don't have many chances. 5 games is not a lot. You see how fast the show starts, and then all of a sudden it's over. The same can be said for the players. They only get a few opportunities here and now, and the pressure is on to continue to compete. But looking at Kanata, looking at Bose, looking at Sphinx, much different story for this team. They have the mass, they have the heals, they have the positioning here. And this is looking like a great game for them.
Yeah, good chances at shots. Knowing the zone is pulling from the north, making teams rotate to the south. A lot of them having to rotate into Bolts, Kanata, and Sphinx. And even though they're not hitting max shots, max spreads by any means, they're keeping it moving forward in terms of Storm Surge. Even looking like they're going to try to position a drop down onto one of the teams if they do get the green light in terms of damage. Polar's able to get another elimination as we jump on Pollo, Acorn, and Angers, who are barely 57 above the threshold. But where some teams will start to get a little bit worried, try to force a fight just so they can get Surge, they have Acorn on the team. He is calculating this one every step of the way, including where this next zone is going to rotate. And I think they're going to try to go all the way towards the left side of the zone and follow the one team in front of them.
Yeah, no one likes to be 93 above the Surge, though. So they are recognizing, hey, they could be the one team separating themselves between being below. Wager's bots trio is going to be moving pretty quickly here. One of the first to take the jump. So Acorn's trio tailing behind have a free rotate due to this. Wagers knew there was a team behind them, trying to get eyes, but didn't quite get the spot out. But I'd say his instincts are dead on. There's for sure a team behind them, whether he knows it or not at this moment.
Just kind of staggering. Seeing the differences a lot of these teams, some barely above Surge. 492 though for Reek, Kook, Carly. Proactivity early in the game. That's freed up a lot of space and freedom for what they're able to do as Rojos get targeted down below. No damage going in yet, but they see that he's a solo, and they're probably seeing if we get some damage, we get some weakness, we could try to jump on this situation, but they're biding their time. They know how many other teams are rotating in this position. They wait till they fully get that elimination, the loot drops, and then they go in and try to scrounge it up to themselves. They know they want to keep their material count throughout these moving zones as high as possible so they don't have to worry.
Yeah, right now, all of our big name teams are looking to get very much situated here as we expect.
Let's go, Coop.
Game, so it's going to become a pretty big clash against the names that we know and love. But wait a second, Boyo falls there on the rotate. There might have spoken a little too soon, but
Boyo. No.
And Kingaling so far pretty well for them here. Take a look at the replay, how it all unfolded. Acorn takes a fight against Chris here. Dangers and Boyo there. Gets them a little bit of, you know,
nice
refresh there. However, it's at the cost of losing Boyo there on the outside of the storm.
Just seeing, even if you're above Surge, you're never safe because Chris, that was a part of the team. We saw them go down early. We saw Chris get rebooted, and so they were low on Surge. They had to take the first fight, and it was so far out of zone. They thought it was a good idea, even with, I do believe, Agers and Acorn surviving in that moment. That put them in such a terrible position. As see the high ground's one thing, down low it's Sphinx,
Come on, Bolts.
Kanata, just trying to dominate the front side of the zone, making sure they keep full control over that space and really not anybody pass them.
Playing front side right now. No teams out here contesting Bolts' trio. Kanata freely being able to target the high ground Tart there. And you see it breaks it all down, so hundreds and hundreds of material count going to waste here, now forcing other teams to start to look up. So they've effectively helped determine that high ground team's
Kanata's a beast.
moment, costing them more than half of their material count, more than half of their territory as well. And pressure coming from the low ground here. Curly's team is actually second height at the moment. Pay close attention here to how this is going to end up playing out. Kanata's team continuing to trail to the front side of zone. No one playing low ground on top of them, so they really don't have much worries here.
Yeah, and even though they're not able to chop down height yet, they're
everyone's coming down.
Materials, making it easy if somebody wants to challenge. Cynics is going to go down. Big shot by Kanata. Not able to clean it up just yet, but as he does, he gets the loot. Cooper, Reed, Curly, even though they might have been second height, but they're just making sure to follow that path, lead the charge as they find another elimination, but they're looking for more. Tyler gets caught off guard. He's trying to climb up the wall, but he ends up getting taken down nonetheless as Reed, Coop, Curly continue to go on a roll.
Huge set of mats right there, dropping from Tyler's body as well. It's going to give them more opportunity. More
Laser at Bolts. Come on.
Kanata, Bolts, and Sphinx have
There it is. There it is. There it is. Lasered. Woo!
Their mats over and over. Think about how this continues to expend this high ground team's material count. Look, King down to just 30 mats now.
Shout out to Turtle Girl for watching the stream. Thank you, Turtle Girl.
Coming from Kanata's trio, so from what looked to be a winning position, now gives Coop, Curly, and Reed's team a chance at success here, a chance to win the game from height. Almost gifted to them at this moment here, but Kanata's trio, because no pressure's down here on the low ground, they keep targeting these high ground trios. In the end, they might just have more material count to win this game.
It's almost like they're baiting it. Go ahead, take that high ground, because it's two different teams that become the target. But Cooper, Reed, Curly, they might have noticed the dangers that loot at the front side of the zone, and they start to target them down below, but it slows down, which leaves Kanata to get an elimination, but that's going to be two. Even Crook going down to the backside, and that's going to be a lot of loot that they're picking up that allows them to claim space on the low ground. Even with double med miss smokes going down, that's HP. That's multiple win conditions, Monster.
3 teams left.
Come
on, Bolts.
Off the high ground team, so Reach Trio is now starting to situate here, but look, Coop's out of mats, so they're gonna have to make a desperate low ground attempt here, or fish for some of the siphon pickups, and look at whose team's still alive. The original high ground holders of King's team is still at the front side of zone. Medmiss allowing Kanata's team to play backside, and they have the mats to go for a little bit of a high ground. Bolts is gonna be the last to swing for it, and he gets it. Front side with Kanata now. They're in control, but they lose Sphinx in the mix here.
This is big because they played it perfect with double med miss smokes, waiting to that last second to come out of zone, and they let those two teams fight. They clash, and now it's definitely theirs for the taking, but you see them taking their time. Two teams down below. Double kneecappers come down, and Coop's now a solo in a tough situation. King goes down to the backside. Chargo's just trying to run away, play the heel off scenario, and the chase is
Coop going to get the 1v2?
1v1. Cooper gets the elimination.
Here it is. Oh my goodness. An all Dignitas team. Or finish. Here we go. Hold on, Coop. Oh!
to last long as
Kanata.
down and advance to Kanata's 26th FNCS Finals.
26, dadgum.
He's gonna make it, and he does it once again. Kanata, you're just so good, and he makes the right decisions when when it matters most. I love the way they played that game out, just controlling the entire tempo of the game. It was masterfully done, and they deserve the victory royale. If there wasn't a second, it seemed like in that end game where they lost control of the narrative, it really did seem like it worked perfectly for them. Let's just take a look at this one more time from Kanata's perspective. You can see these pickups are absolutely critical, and this one right here was the game changer, Jacob.
Yeah, it definitely was. And throughout many games that I've seen, teams don't even target high ground. Almost zone after zone after zone. They looked up, they chopped out high ground, they got them to expend all their resources and more. And game number one, Kanata, Bolts, and Finks have to be on top of the world after that one, but there's still so much action to break down. Zeke, Kelly, Vivid, give us a hand.
Kanata!
God.
Kanata! Do you guys see the script? Do you see what I'm writing? Do you see the poetic nature of the script I've been writing for 5 years? Do you see?
For 5 years.
It's actually been longer, but that's fine. Kanata, this is why we talked about them at the start of the show. And I love here that we kind of called out, Kelly, you called out.
26
We had
FNCSs.
this same head-to-head
Grand finals.
last major, but it went the other way, right? Kanata lost game one. Now to come back and win game one. As Jacob said, we're now 26 finals of 26, which is unbelievable. And they've qualified going to finals. You know they have eyes set on the global championships. This is a major boon for them.
As far as Kanata goes, yes, this is very similar to what we saw last major. It was Kanata's trio in Major 3 that won game one, but it was against Acorn's trio actually when it came down to the final 3v3. And as much as I'd love to give the credit to Coop, Curly, and Reet, who were the final 3v3 there, truly amazing play style from Kanata. And there was something that we were noticing in the final moments there around zone 9 that Kanata, Bolts, and Sphinx kept kind of peeking up, and they were the ones that were trying to chop height. Inevitably, they do eventually get it, but it's actually Cooper, Curly, and Reet that are able to take height away from them. But that doesn't slow Bolts and Kanata down. No, they stay low. They're able to save their mats. Eventually, in like the final moments, take height and then have it go down to the 2v1.
Listen, if I had probably about an hour, I wouldn't be able to talk about enough, like what I would actually want to talk about, what I just saw that game. First, I'm trying my best here in about a minute. First, Kanata, the efficiency, the activity, that entire game, we saw it in some of those highlights right there. He went from pressuring higher ground at one point to not even a second later editing down on a player that was on the lower ground and finding the elimination. Sometimes we just see that separation. The top heavy kind of format that we're watching right now, or this group, we can see that Kanata's trio obviously holding a lot of that weight. And then the second thing, listen, I've been involved with Fortnite for a very long time. I got to play professionally. I've been watching for a very long time. One of the coolest plays that caught me even off guard was that Med Miss smoke on the front side of the moving zone. When that zone kind of bounced back, they still stuck it out. They sat in zone and sprayed at the team that controlled the coolest plays I've ever seen. And the fact that that's what got them in the finals, very, very cool stuff.
Man, I cannot wait to see how they impact finals.
Reed,
next
Cooper,
week.
Curly took
Congratulations
third.
to the trio. Now, of course, there is more to break down, but first we go to a break. When we come back, we'll talk about more of we saw out of game number one. So we'll see you real soon.
Acorn, Agers, Poyo, 10th. That's shocking. Noah Chaos Kaz, 18th. Jojo Fishy, 21st. Bowl Cut Tyler. Stellar name.
It's not a hobby. It's your empire. It's not DIY. It's do it yourself on Wix.
And especially having it be Cooper versus Spinks in those final moments. You know that Cooper and Spinks have been friends for a very long time, playing Major 1 together. So to see them go up head-to-head in the final moments of game number 1 for the group stages here, it's absolutely crazy. And, you know, I might be one of the biggest fans of Reet, but it really is Vivid that called out exactly what we were going to be seeing. That mid-game play style, kind of around zones 10, really carried them throughout that end game.
I mean, they did such a good job of controlling pretty much the entirety of the mid gun. You can see that there was nobody actually pretty much on that layer. All the teams being squished down to the lower layer, or of course, one team above them. But I gotta tip my hat to them, right? Because they actually did end up on the high ground. I was like, wait, Reet, Curly, and Cooper on the high ground. They weren't even like one of the two teams that were spraying out high ground. It just means that they were so aware that they were like, okay, listen, this other team, they're kind of pulling this off right now. We see them pressing. Oh, higher ground team's falling off. Let's actually go ahead and steal that. Very good awareness coming out of them. Gotta mention though, second place, 7 eliminations. It's kind of crazy, right? They're actually in 3rd place behind Silic's team.
Oh my goodness, and Silic's team did such a good job there. We were talking about it at the start of the show. These teams that try and take high ground around zone 8, they're just not able to hold it all the way through. And although that is kind of what we saw, there was moments there, Vivid, where we were wondering, how are they able to have all these mats? They're not getting any eliminations on the ground. How are they able to hold it for so long? And when they did lose high ground, they were able to recover really well on the low ground. This trio right here, they might be the dark horses for today.
Oh yeah, 100%. And what Kelly was kind of mentioning right there was like, yeah, they were receiving so much pressure from a couple of our teams in that end game right there, and they were just like standing there, no care in the world, not applying any pressure back. Just like, yeah, I'm just gonna outbuild all of these bulls that are raining in on us right now. And I'm like, hello, we're usually talking about teams on NA that they don't have enough mats to kind of suffice on the high ground, and then there's this team that's just like eating it all up so very, very easily. So something went right in their game plan along the way to where they had so many materials. But yes, I mean, Kelly hit the nail on the head right there. The recovery factor. They lost the high gun. They had 0 materials. Still were able to find their footing on the low ground right there and make it a great game for them.
You know what? I have a question mark though. After all that, right? We did see some good gameplay, but there was a big factor that we were missing, and that's that Poyo factor. What happened to them? I see here that they kind of fell 11th place with 5 elims, but I feel like in some ways that's a little uncharacteristic.
You know, Acorn, Agers, and Poyo, they're a trio, and we saw it during Major 1 last year, that when they did get that victory royale, they were just kind of like, cool, all right. And I think that they're kind of playing that game right here. It wasn't necessarily the end game that they were looking for, so instead of really panicking about it, I'm sure that they are not too worried whatsoever. And even with going down early there, Vivid, they're still in our top 10. But Zeke, I want to see how they do in this game.
Well, it's time, Kelly. Ask and you shall receive. Game number 2 is ready for us. So let's jump back into the action. Casters, take it away.
Game number 1 was absolutely massive. Kanata going to the finals, but I gotta give credit. King on Expo, 2,300 damage in that game, almost 1,000 above the next best player in that lobby. And we're gonna see if he could do it again, because game number 2 is ready.
All right, 1 game down, few more to go. That didn't make any sense. Few more to go. I was gonna say many more to go, but then I thought about it. It's only 5 games, not like final settings. But hey, look, this is gonna be a big opportunity now for Noah W Plays. We saw his team get taken out early. I noticed online that he was talking about he is gonna be taking up the hopeful heights, going back to his original draw spot. That's part of the fun dynamic, right? When teams start to qualify their way out of these settings, these lobbies because of the Victor Royale. So with Kanata's team moving on, hey, this gives chance and opportunity for other teams to kind of step on in.
Yeah, but you're already seeing more than just them change up their drop spot. A fight here at the split drop that was contested in game number 1, no longer contested, which means they have to go somewhere else. And already 3 teams at Seaport, and this is a big fight with a couple already being dropped down. Mike Pot's going to get the first elimination on this side of the map, and already this is looking like a very, very dangerous and risky situation to be in.
Yeah, think about it. And this is where Noah W Plays team was, right? So originally 4 teams contesting his drop. It's just not reasonable. It's not a good drop by any means. I think they made the right decision to probably veer off towards the Hopeful Heights now. And for all the teams here, my gosh, talk about a difficult situation to be in. Lena and Clixie and Drew first that we're seeing of them in this early type of contestation. Before it was Logan's team who came out successful over the trios here. See what they can bring to the table here and now.
Yeah, you're already seeing a scanner going down, so even though they're trying to drop their way down to the bottom of that building, their position can be revealed for a short amount of time. It's going to allow them, for Clixie and his trio, to put down just a little bit of pressure. Not much, and that's the thing that makes it kind of hard to fight over at Seaport is, yes, when you kind of land off the spawn, you have a weapon, they don't, you can chase them around, but as everything kind of settles down, the dust settles, and things like this happen, it's kind of very, very hard to just break into one of those buildings, try to land a 1 pump. It just comes at a very big risk, but landing shots like that as they go ahead and pull away, and this is where it's going to be up to Leyland, Drewbot, and Clixie if they want to continue to put the pressure here.
I like this position right here, but I'm not really feeling the loadout. There's a lot of room for upgrades here on all of these teams. They're spending a little too much time trying to gather information. The clock is ticking up, seeming like both sides are just going to go and settle out and opt to get to their farming here. Meanwhile, Bullcut Tyler, Skittles and Tofi right now, taking a look, setting up this ambush here. Now, do remember they were contested in game 1. They didn't have time to set this fight up, so it's a little bit different for them now.
Good shots as they continue to kind of adapt as the game does go on. They're trying to go ahead and do the sneaky plays instead of it happening to them. They got some good damage, but it's not going to be a ton. It's not a good confidence boost, so now they got to make that conscientious decision with how contested this side of the map was in game 1. Do we stay here? Do we try to hold them? Or do we move on out? Just jump on over to one of our hotspot POIs for this group, Crime City, and you're seeing they're fighting directly inside of that bunker, and they just don't want to let one team kind of just dominate it and get it for free without at least a little bit of risk.
Yeah, definitely worth the fight, but for King Beast here, his kind of situation here, they could use a ton of material count. They got to find a way out now. That's the one problem with getting into this vault here. You do find yourself potentially held out. Chris's team on the other side. See how it's looking for them. Not too bad here. They definitely have the slight advantage, I'd say. The material count here. How do you think this is going to play out?
I think this is almost like a no-win situation, because even if they're able to make their way in, Chris, Wager, and Danger, it's just going to come at such a high risk. Another third-party team, you see them at the bottom of the map, just a little bit out of the distance. But if they hear this and they see this as an opportunity to sneak, we've saw it not only Group 2, we saw it in Group 1 as well. That's how a lot of players were getting caught off guard. So I do like their decision to kind of disengage, give it up. There's no way they can fight it for free. And with the little resources and materials that they have, I do think it's a better decision to at least try and farm up.
Acorn Aegis and Boya on the move right now. Once again, playing that Mass Meadows, one of the early rotates here. We saw them having somewhat of a surge problem, right, in the mid-game. So it seemed like they had their early game on lock, but I do wonder if it was due to a lack of playing aggressive in their early situations. We'll have to see here. This game's going a lot slower, though, Jacob, than the previous.
Yeah, I think with one game down, it's almost that opposite effect of some of our groups that we saw, where it was kind of very, very slow in game 1, players filling each other out. Now it kind of went the other way. You got to imagine some players maybe have lost fights in game 1 that they didn't necessarily think they would, so they're taking just a much slower approach. And what you're seeing here out of Acorn, Agers, and Poyo, they quickly looted up their Mass Meadows, got all their loot, they got the deal bits, now they're kind of farming up, and they're going to have an abundance due to that gold, so they're going to throw a lot of extra big pots, maybe some splashes towards the top of that surge tower, and just kind of sit up there and let every team that's rotating by be possible targets for their collection of surge.
Gotta keep tagging. Let's take a look, though. Jump into another area here for Diego. Plays this trio. Saw the mistakes from the previous game, making that one poor decision to try to get a pickup inside the storm. Cost them everything. They won't be looking to do anything like that this time around. Looking at the feet, though, Curly's trio. Picking up Bull Cut Tyler over by the Whiffy Wharf, so a lot developing now. It's inevitable, right, given the pacing of the game here, but Diego's team rotating right into a full trio here. This trio looking to size them up, potentially take the fight here as they get the first tags onto Ralphie. An early med miss. Not sure if that's to try to bait them in or not, but another fight here, Jacob, with Logan being the first to fall here.
Another elimination. Dom's down as well. That's second for Clixie. But more and more teams rotating through Seaport City. So it's great that they're able to get the eliminations, but you're seeing 28 builds on Clixie alone. A huge lack of resources, 6 on Drewbot. So for them staying in this position as long as they have been so far, yeah, maybe their surge is good, but what about everything else to kind of complete the game? Kind of putting themselves in a position where they have to kind of stagger themselves back, farm up, or maybe even fight again to try to get elimination, just like some of our other teams do, and that's how they collect their resources. As Phenom, Eulogy, they're going to get that revive onto Yusuf. Nobody feeling confident enough, even after collecting the down, to try to push over and get the elimination.
Yeah, I was going to say, one thing's for certain, Seaport City is just dangerous at this time of the game. More teams opting to rotate north and closer to the Seaport City here. This is just becoming a very much of a hot spot for action right now.
Thought I saw it for a moment. Might have been the Black Market team of Agers, Acorn, and Poyo trying to get their surge in that direction, but a lot of the teams landing towards the north, they got an early rotation to make. Luckily for them, it is not as drastic as some of the other games we've seen. You know, if I had to predict and make an early guess on this zone, it's going to kind of set her up, so I would be very, very careful late in the game if it does continue to move towards those mountains, because yesterday, if it showed us anything, if you're not prepared for the elevation changes as drastic as they can be, you're going to expend a lot of mats and find yourself in a worse off situation.
Yeah, you definitely can't do that too early in the game. You find yourself set back, held out, but talk about teams moving towards the Seaport. Polio, Acorn, and Agers are that southernmost team. I was curious as to what trios it were, but that question's now been answered in full for us here. Beneath them, you have Seek, Veer, and Dash there. Very notable trio as well. Look at this, Acorn's loadout really not looking like the best here at the moment. Nice little exchanges there.
I could see them maybe rotating back towards the Black Market after this, because they do have that armored vehicle as well, so they don't have to necessarily travel on foot if it is still going to be there. This Ager's just a little bit too close down below for my own comfort. Taking that 1v3, still landing a good shot. Reet, Curly Coop, still over towards Flooded Frogs. You saw in the feed that Curly was able to get multiple eliminations, and they've gotten 2 more since then. And so when it comes to Storm Surge, they're adapting on the fly from game 1 to game 2, realizing that Storm Surge can really dictate not just yours, but a lot of other teams nearby.
Yeah, they're in an excellent spot, all right? And they have the med miss here as well to go ahead and cap off, so a lot of time to work with. This is going to allow them to do something really big here for the mid game, which is play dead side, really just avoid other teams, and we'll surely be seeing them into another end game there at this pace. So back on over to the Crime City, though. I was asking you, what do you think is all gonna happen here? And it seems like a full-on standoff for all sides, and it might have even ultimately ended in this team retreating back into the vault here, given that Chample has more mats somehow than there was when we first tuned in. So very interesting development here, but I'm not a fan of it.
Now, I'm not a fan either, because it almost puts you in a situation, if you're Quiz, Wager, in danger. If you do not win this fight, if you do not get the resources from taking down Champo, Beast, and Cosmo, you're in a terrible situation, because you're in zone, almost the center. More and more teams will begin to rotate in this direction, especially because there's not only the mountain, but the Black Market just north. So you really got to start to formulate a plan B if this does not work out. as a thermite finds his way through, reveals their position, and now they know they're just waiting outside the vault.
Yeah, if there was a question, a doubt, there's no doubt anymore. And it's not just like waiting this out and then, you know, being set back for the mid game. It's also the damage. The rest of the lobby is continuously being active right here. This team, given that they've been so passive, they're not, you know, really fishing for enough tags on one another either. So it's something to take into account here.
So if you're the team in the vault, do you at any point try and break out, or are you just at the mercy of Danger, Chris, and Wagers? Because it does come with its own risk. There's only one way in, one way out, especially if they have all the surrounding control on that side of the map. So it's just honestly an interesting decision to see how this plays out.
I was gonna say, you would think that given enough time, the team outside the vault should just give it up, right? It's inevitable. However, you don't want to just leave it up to chance either. So yeah, I think they have to do something desperate. Gotta fight for it, if you will.
Shiny Shafts, just a couple teams floating, rotating nearby. There's a lot of extra heals in terms of bandages. They have the water sprite. If they can find a shrine, they can kind of refresh it as well. So not too worried for them in this position, as long as they're farming up and getting some of that resource that they do lack, which is going to be metal, which Shiny Shafts does have a lot of. So you're kind of seeing their game plan in motion. Just outside of that, Hooper, Reet, Curly making their way in towards the zone, but they just want to heal up as well. Why use any of the med kits, the smokes, when there's this perfectly good fire pit down below?
Stoke the flames, and this is what we talked about. They're going to be able to play things a lot differently given how many eliminations they picked up. You won't see this very often from trios playing late into the storm like this, utilizing the campfires in the vicinity and then playing for a full dead side rotate. Whole team has kneecappers, chug splashes to work with. This is just, again, a masterful rotate here and a wonderful setup for game two. It's not something you can bank on either, right? This is just how you play it when the cards have been dealt to you in this way. Finding that many eliminations so early have given them the chance to do just that. You have to respect it. On the other side, there's a team that has to try to set themselves up for a little bit of vision here on the map. Brutal Zulpix. Go early to the party here outside the Foxy Floodgate. And remember, all those teams from the Seaport City, there was about 5 or 6 we saw in that general area. They're going to be some of the few that are going to start to rotate in here shortly.
And this is where it starts to get a little dangerous with some of those rotations. You see where the zone is pulling, and look at the outside land. There's so many different mountain ranges that teams will have to cross through, and there's already teams set up to get surged from those positions. So it's really going to funnel certain teams in certain areas, unless you went ahead and took that slower approach like we saw Reet and his trio do to take the slow side with those eliminations. And this is an example of just that. Teeks back, and Scuffy's going to have to rotate essentially directly into some form of team. Liquid's going to be the one right above, so it's not even that trio that I'm worried about. It's the two towards the outside that they're going to have to fight, eventually running into, as one's already down. KSM taking a big shot. Liquid trying to stay alive, using the water sprite as a solo, and he's trying to go ahead and get the advantage on the Scuffies to buy his teammates some time, alleviate some of that pressure so they can find some freedom.
I was wondering what in the world made it so that Texas team decided that they wanted to take that fight. I mean, they had the advantage, they had the damage, but maybe they just knew that they were a man up on the trio. And you could see that it was not worth the even small engagement there. It cost them a fair bit, and now also the attention of the teams that have pulled the zone further and first across the waterways. So they're just asking for trouble now, and they're both in a pretty much dire situation here to rotate out. It's going to cost them even more mats. KSM, Liquid here, watching Tex team go off to the left here. Definitely the better decision. I wouldn't doubt if KSM's trio just says, you know what, we got to follow them.
I'm speechless.
Oh my gosh.
I'm honestly, I'm trying to think about what to say in a moment like this. This was your worry, the lack of surge. 420 below that damage threshold and counting, and you see they're still hiding outside of that vault. They're 300 damage, which means they've had at least one player. 2 of them were camping the vault. One player was constantly moving around Crime City, constantly looking for little opportunities at damage, and now you're seeing the huge difference it makes. Active surge on the other other side. Eventually, whether a fight happens or not, Monster, I fear they're going to go down, and all that loot, regardless, is going to go over to Chris Danger and Wager.
This is funny though. Look at look at this storm too. It's pulling mad south, right? Like, so even the team outside is like, hey, we're just gonna wait for them. Like, we're not gonna rotate. We're just gonna chill here. And it seems like Cosmo, Thug, and Champa are like, you know what? We're good. We'd rather lose. We'd rather fall to the Storm Surge than give our loot to Chris's trio. And Chris, they see and they recognize, hey, we still have a chance here. Let's just go ahead and move. So clearly you can see who the real winners of this whole situation is. But at the end, Champa's team has no idea that they left. So there you have it.
I'm just kind of waiting for the feed, just because eventually that Storm Surge is going to catch up to them. They're waiting for a moment where it deactivates into the next phase, but it's just a tough situation. I hopefully a learning lesson for them. It is going to be 3 games left if they don't survive, so they can kind of pick things back up and really try to reassess the situation. Dash goes down. Oh no! Hopefully nobody's clipping that one. I might see that on social media later.
Wait, we were just talking about House of Cells. That one's making the cut. Congrats, Ronin Dash. Very nicely played for him. Medmiss is going to come out here. I'm wondering if X-On-Site's going to decide to jump on this team now. They saw the Medmiss come out. That's going to be a surefire sign for them.
Yeah, and even when they find their way in towards zone, yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Even when they find themselves in zone, it's not going to get easier at all. No resources, active surge, 15 below. Only one team at site that's fully built up already. So spraying over in that direction is not going to be too useful, but they find it on the Liquid anyway. Ooh, the reboot comes in, and they're charging over. They have no other... No! Storm Surge saves him in that second. It is up to Seek, all or nothing, 1v1, and he is on the clock. He gets above surge. He gets the elimination. It's actually goes over to Aoxy, but he gets the loot or whatever's left of it. What is this game?
Work. You just can't make this up, right? Like what you're watching right now, it just happens. Sometimes it just happens that way. Seek's got the reboot card. Well, actually, I don't even know if he can even play for anything else. Given the surge, of course, took the elimination there. So nonetheless, tough situation for that trio. We'll see what they can end up doing here. Back on over to the safe side of the zone. Much more calm situation going on here. Jargu, Silicon, King have themselves a nice, clean position here. After a strong game 1 Sherman, we'll be keeping eyes on them to see if they're going to be one of those high ground teams that come up and out of nowhere. Diego, Ralphie, and Fred, though, better game performance so far. They've made it a little bit further. However, does seem like Diego is getting active right here on a unsuspecting trio right here. They thought they were going to go in and find a finish onto Ralphie, but not on Diego's watch. And then the pickup comes through. Do they have a Medmiss is the real question. Oh, the enemy team does, though. Go ahead and get a little bit of that. That's going to probably save them.
Oh.
Slows down the revive. Fred goes down.
Oh, with the bat. Oh, with the bat. Oh. Oh my gosh. Oh. That is crazy. Wow.
Left and right there, and then the clutch shot with the shotgun. You never saw it coming. Gold Rush effect is going to keep him in the game here to go in and make this rotate now. And my gosh, what a game we are watching. There is chaos unfolding everywhere here and now. Another Medmiss comes through. And you know what? I genuinely thought that Medmiss from Missouri the first time was going to save Diego's trio.
God, it was. This is the other side. Oh, that was the beauty right there. That shot on the Fred turned things around. And instead of just going for the elim, he just broke out the Louisville Slugger and just started teeing off. Diego got hit with the edge. He turns around, takes down the last one. And he realized instantly, just like in game 1, we saw a team, Diego probably in the black market trying to be a hero. He knew, I cannot save my teammate, and immediately beelined it to zone.
This game's hilarious. It all started with the Volt, you know, the pace was set for us, the story was set. Let's see what the end game has for us now. Take a look at this though. On some more serious things. Boyo, Agers, Acorn finding their refreshes, finding their big pickups here. This is a mountain end game, so we already know we're gonna be in for a crazy one here.
Team 538, they're just looking around right now. This is one of those teams that take a slower approach to these games, let the eliminations come to them as Pollo just finds another one, the second one of the game. Just barely peeking outside as Acorn peeking to the cone. Information vital for him. The IGL really leading the charge for the team. We know how clutch he can be because it was last major. He's put in a 1v1 situation where if he would have lost that, there goes the Major 1 championship as Pollo tees off, sending his team towards the zone. So that way they can find a good spot on this rotation.
Like it, gotta find those elims just like that. Big points, big pickups. Look at Curly's trio. Nice wide skirt rotation on the outsert. Day, Clover, Alo. Get the high ground position first, up and over. Wait a second, that low ground team didn't even see them kind of swing around. They let their
Day and night.
brief moment there, and Day's trio's all of a sudden securing up the high ground here.
Yeah, luckily for him, he was kind of a little slower than the rest of his teammates. He was able to spot Reef and their trio just trying to sneak up the other side of the zone. Acorn, Agers, Pollo looking like they were just in a rough situation here. But Acorn having another elimination, which means they were able to kind of fend him off, not only get that, but get all the loot. Kind of get the option to pick and choose exactly what they want before they make their way up that side of the mountain with the rest of the lobby. Currently, Monster, there's only 2 teams in the zone as of now.
Yeah, you can't be caught in the zone. The replay is just highlighting Acorn, Agers, and Pollo continuously finding their moments. Seems like we jump away, watch something play out, and Acorn's team's just making a big play for themselves here. Meanwhile, Noah Plays team, take a look at this. A great showing here in game 2. This is because they switched up that draw spot, and luckily they did, right? You saw 4 teams at the Seaport City. Now that Kanata's trio has qualified out of the Hopeful Heights, they have that entire kind of southern area free of charge to themselves here, and they're making great work of it.
This is almost a feeling of deja vu here for Reek, Curly, and Coop. We didn't see a ton of them in game 1, but they were just kind of flying under the radar, taking space when they needed to, and get some good damage onto a full trio towards the side. They look down, there's more battles going on underneath, and Curly continuously finding those opportunities. Coop, I do believe, picks up the 4th elimination there. They're 7th overall, 829 above the damage threshold, and with his own pulling on over to the other side of the mountain. And there's going to be a little bit of elevation changes as it kind of skips towards the side.
The Agers team saying, you know what, we're going to play front side low. They actually give up all this natural high ground instead of being late to land on top for a bit of a high ground position. They say and play the low ground. Meanwhile, take a look at the highlight here. Oh, just ripping players out the sky here. Day's team doing a great job so far, but gotta be careful. Look, there was a lurking squad inside the zone there. Taking note for Jargu, Silic, and King. They're also kind of in a mid-ground position here, just taking their time, not trying to overcommit to any one position or another at the moment.
Resurgence of Noah, Chaos, and Kaz is in this game. What a difference a drop spot makes, and a more comfortable one at that. Kind of taking charge instead of kind of egoing up or trying to on Seaport, thinking you're the best. They just kind of made a quick adjustment. It's already working out for them tenfold as Jan loses Day. Him and Alo going to be stuck as a duo. You see the lack of resources, and his teammate goes down, tries to move his way back in, but they get the elimination and quickly move out, leaving Jan to the backside of his own with decisions to make of how he's going to try to make it in, and he has no choice but to go all the way down low into that chaos where you see more eliminations being handed over to Noah Plays.
Yeah,
Come on,
it was
Acorn.
all good until it wasn't, and that's
Cool.
when the team decides to kind of play Medmiss late into the storm there. For Reek, Curly, and Coop, though, they are not putting themselves in any type of position like that. Meanwhile, Acorn's team jumps up, but another trio looks into this, kind of put their
Come on, Acorn.
determining factor on the matter here, and it's actually Coop's trio from the low ground putting pressure up top.
Wow.
Acorn falls now too, and Agers is left as a solo now to kind of fend it out here in the
Pollo's
middle.
down.
Meanwhile, Boji's trio from high ground comes down. They get the full finishes there, pick up some of the mats off of Acorn's body, and this is bouncing back towards the mountain here. So good decision on them not to fully give it up just yet, and they have the advantage here.
This makes you question how many healthy trios are going to be full teams down below. This is one, Reek, Curly, and Coop. And we didn't really even touch on, we talked about the controller to keyboard. Reek taking the driver's seat as IGL for this team, and he's trying to lead them to victory, going up layer by layer.
No one up there.
Yeah, and he's ready to challenge it. Curly's there. They have so many builds. The biggest question that I have is what is the HP? What is the alternate win condition if it does come down to it? As Coop finds another elimination on Agers, Jaribu goes down. That's a quick lead up once more from Noah Plays, and it comes down to a 3v3 situation with the zone moving across the side of the mountain once more.
Come on, Noah. Clutch up.
They are at 9 eliminations. Talk about a comeback game here. And if nothing else, second place right now is fantastic. They are starting to run out of material. Reed's team, just again, so smart for them to go for high ground first. And it is not looking good right now for our low ground boys here, but they're going to go up. They're going to try to put this all down into a fighting situation here. Coop starting to run out of material. So it's not looking perfect for high ground.
Oh, Coop's low on mats. Oh, Noah's down. Oh!
They close out strong. Reed's team.
King Reed.
Hey, we expected of the OGs to do it just like that.
They might be a new trio on the block, but playing like they've been together for quite a long time. From game 1, staying in the conversation, to game 2, changing just little things up, the surge differences to dominate in that end game. And you got to give them all the credit in the world. Every new IGL for this team, sticking on controller and paying off tenfold. Welcome to the finals.
Yeah, talk about timing, right? He goes up, and you saw how he was building for a second. He's like, hey, whether you like it or not, if there's a player up here or not, we're going to fight for this. And they timed it perfectly, and it just turned out. Those teams ran out of gas. They didn't have anything, and they do win. And this was a very, very difficult end zone, too. This was not an easy game by any means. Congratulations on the victory royale for SG's Reed, Coop, and Curly. Zeke, what a game that was. Game 2 is now over.
That's so great. Sorry, hold on 1 second. Reed, you dropped this, King. Sorry about that. I don't know what you did with there. Man, cannot believe it. I mean,
The homie King Reed.
right now, obviously one of Reed's biggest fans. To see this trio pull out this W, especially, I love that they call this out too. These zones are so brutal. This is looking like yesterday, Kelly.
Yeah, what happened, Zeke? I thought you promised no more mountain zones, but that's
It's a new day.
okay. A little bit of a
It's a new day.
slip of the
Reset it.
script is fine. But obviously, when it comes to Cooper, Reed, and Curly, it doesn't matter what zone that they're put into because they did such a good job controlling the mid ground. And when you have this crazy kind of mountainous zone pull, high ground and low ground get really weird. So honestly, sticking to the mid ground can be quite the advantage. But for me, it is about Reed rising once again. We saw in Major 1, Reed was not able to make it into the Major 1 finals, and that was the first time we hadn't seen him in an FNCS finals in years, Vivid. So to see him come back to his former glory with global champion Coop and Curly, who was just fragging out of his mind. Again, I said at the start of the show, I'm going to say it again, I am so excited to watch this trio in the finals.
I mean, this trio is just doing super, super well. I got to go ahead and highlight whoever made the call for this trio during that 8th zone rotation, right? They made a little bit of an early one. They didn't go necessarily all the way to the top of the mountain, but it ended up working out very, very well for them as they were able to hold a lot of the other teams, right? Kind of claim that space and hold on to that for pretty much the rest of the game. A little bit of a recall, though, right? We saw this trio. They were on the higher ground in game number 1, but when we tuned into them, they had like 0 materials. Completely different story this game, right? When we tuned into them, they were on the high ground. I saw like 32 builds on one of them. Just so many mats to work with right there. And when it came down to that 3v3, they were just out-resourced them, out-positioned them. Pretty easy cleanup for them at that point. Victory Royale, we're going to be seeing that trio in the finals.
Oh man, I cannot wait. I mean, finals Reed is just different, right? I cannot wait to be just like talking about him next weekend in the finals. Now, of course, other things transpired in that game. A few other trios stood out, but first, a quick break. I know. When we come back, we'll break down more of the action we saw from that game. FM to the FNCS. We just wrapped up game number 2 where Reet, Coop, and Curly got themselves the victory royale, which means they're good. No more Fortnite needed to be played today. We'll be seeing them in next week's finals for them. Next step is prep. Now, a bunch of other cool things happened in that last game, like the fact we saw Agers, Acorn, and Pollo really come back strong right after that first game, which, like, you know, 11th place like isn't bad by any means, but we kind of just expect so much more from this trio. So to see them kind of really pick things up in game number 2, I'm so confident we can see them walk away with the VR in the next few games.
Yeah, and you know, this is the group stages. It's going to be a little different than what we see out of the normal finals competition, especially when it comes to Agers, Acorn, and Pollo. I don't think that this is the finals trio that we're going to be witnessing in just a week. And I say that a little bit, you know, assuming that they're going to make it into the finals, but with this trio, you know, they're not having the best few games, but they still have 3 more games to go, Vivid. And even if they aren't able to get that victory royale, with Agers' ability to do those solo clutches, like what we saw from the Major 1 finals, I am fairly confident that they will at least be making it in through consistency.
Oh yeah, 100%. And the biggest changing factor between games 1 and game 2 is when we actually tuned into that trio. This game, right, looked like they actually had a footing underneath them in terms of having the materials required for the rest of the game, and not to mention the storm surge, right? We tuned in them right there, they were 500 above, but in game number 1 it was only like 13 above. So definitely a big difference in between those 2 games for that trio right there. And you want to talk about big differences, why don't we go ahead and focus in on Noah W plays Chaos and Kaz right here, right? Game number 1, Zeke, 31st, and then this game right here, game number 2, 2nd place.
They did such a good job on the low ground, playing so aggressively, and I'm glad that we're getting able to watch Noah W plays there, because as they were kind of going through the low ground there, they were just taking team by team down, getting all those elimination points. And although you're not able to get the victory royale, jumping up that many placement points is definitely going to make you feel a bit more confident going into game number 3.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, what an incredible game from this trio, and it's really well played as well. Some of these zones, they get very, very tough. They're hard to maneuver, and finding yourself in 2nd place right there is going to be an incredible feat. And as you can see, when that 3v3 kind of came around, they looked up, they were like, yeah, we don't really have any materials. Let's just try to do something fancy here and go for some 50-50 shotgun shots. Of course, not going to be working out, but a little peek at the leaderboard there, and they can find themselves in 5th place right now.
And the fact that Noah is actually streaming right now from his perspective is so cool. Nods to you, Noah. If you're not watching, please go check out his stream. If you'd watched him from that last perspective, I'm sure they were going crazy. We also can't forget technically 1st place, right? 3rd. Look at Silic, Jargu, and Kingling. And I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, Jargu. My apologies. But these guys have been really performing super big here today. I mean, 2 3rd places back to back. And in game 1, they had 11 eliminations. They are looking really, really good right now.
Ooh, I mean, especially you have that mythic drum gun in your loadout, you're definitely able to do so much damage and get those storm surge tags that kind of throw some of our newer trios for a loop. Although I say that this necessarily isn't a newer trio, just maybe a trio that hasn't necessarily found their footing just yet. But to see them go into, you know, such a dominant 2 games, I'm guessing the victory royale is within their reach for game number 3, Vivid.
Yeah, 100% would not be surprised with that. And I guess, you know, those dark horse trios, usually we kind of see that 1 game pop off and we're like, oh, wow, that was pretty surprising, right? Didn't necessarily expect that out of them. And then the follow-up is usually, you know, a little bit of a return. But no, back-to-back kind of proving, hey, listen, we deserve to be in the end of these games right here. Super impressive stuff.
And guys, look, we're already at the halfway point. We're about to start game 3, and there's only 5 on the day. What are you guys hoping to see in these last few games? Because for a lot of these trios, excuse me, like, we need to do something now. If these first 2 games we've had any kind of errors or mix-up or whatever, like, we do not have enough games left to try and piece some things together. It's basically like fail or hit the battle bus.
You know, I think for Acorn, Agers, and Pollo, there is no fail in their future. They're going to be making it, but I want to see them go for the win here. I want to see them change some things up, and let's see those reigning champs.
I mean, paying attention to groups 1 and group 2, how those 5 games necessarily went. Usually around group 3 is where the games start to be a little bit less stacked. So going into game number 3, maybe some of our players or competitors, they're going to be aware of that and start to play a little bit differently.
Okay. I'm hoping to see more aggression. Let's get more aggressive. Let's have more fights. Let's have more builds off. Maybe less mountain zones. We'll see. With that being said, though, game number 3 is ready. Let's Let's hit it.
No, we want all the mountain zones.
Well, one thing's for certain, if Zeke said it, that means the script is in. We should see some pretty tamed zones here moving forward. We'll see though, Jacob.
No, we definitely should see, and I'm liking the switch ups from some of these teams. But with another team outside of the lobby, a big drop spot has just opened up of Flooded Frogs. It was uncontested, so I expect a team, maybe even two, to try to land over there and find some success.
Undoubtedly. Well, it sounds like the battle bus is ready. Let's jump on.
Shout out to Mama Ratchet for joining the stream.
As Zeke was alluding to, Monster, this is game 3, the halfway point, and it's pivotal for a good portion of the teams in the lobby if they want to keep that condition of consistency alive. You can maybe have 1-2 bad games, but those rest of the games, you need to figure out a way to perform.
Yeah, I think there's still a chance for teams to pick up the points that you need and punch through consistency. But this is the point that you do it, right? If you drop game 1, if you drop game 2, and you earned, basically zeroed out, it's not over just yet, but you're going to need a performance the way you saw Noah's team pull up, right? Noah, Kaz, and Chaos, second place, big eliminations. They are back like they never left, and they're very much in the conversation. But that's not an easy feat, not at all, not by any means. Here's a team, though, Jacob, that we saw, I don't know, not have the greatest game at the Crime City. Campo, Thug, Cosmo, they got kind of stuck in the vault, if you remember well.
Yeah, and I'm almost wondering if that experience alone is why they almost just switched up. They are landing at the north side of Crime City now,
Yeah,
giving up that vault all over to the other side, and you can kind of see them immediately trying to go to work. But a fight from game 1 contested, game 2 uncontested, now game 3 contested yet again. Tyler ignites a nice shot, but it's just not going to be enough.
Fallen, Lays, and Cully come back with it. You know what? I did not expect that to happen, but he had the pump and dump. So he's got just the slight advantage. The pistol's just not enough on the full cut Tyler inventory there. And hey, this is what happens, You can't let your guard down just because, a team decides to give it up after a certain round. You got to expect them to land on you. And this house, we already talked about it, though. It's just not big enough, right? It's truly not big enough. Barely big enough for a trio.
You're seeing that a lot of teams switching up their drop spots yet again, going on over towards Demon Dojo. We were seeing this contested throughout both groups 1 and groups 2 so far, and nobody landing Flooded Frogs, Monster.
What?
Try to tell me what just happened?
Why is nobody landing flooded?
It's like mind games, right? You might be thinking, oh, of course someone's gonna land there. Do we want to try that? And just like that, no one goes there. You would think all the teams at Seaport City might, of the 4, one of them might say, hey, yeah, let's try the drop. Let's try something new. Noah got away with Hopeful Heights. Maybe Flooded Frogs will be uncontested, but, well, we'll see. Now, the real question is, do you think the next game is going to be 3 teams landing there?
I hope not. If you go down maybe outside of the top 25, maybe even the top 20, because placement doesn't come into the top 17, you better be VOD reviewing. Figure it out. See that nobody dropped there. But like you said, that mind games, because you might start to think it was uncontested. You move on over. A couple other teams in the lobby might be thinking the same thing as we jump on board. Uncontested Masked Meadows, where Acorn, Agers, and Poyo are. And you can see Poyo's trying to become the first player to ever win 5 FNCS titles in a row. It's going to be a hard one. It's going to be tough, but I think if there's any team that can prove they could do it, it's going to be them here.
It's crazy, man. People constantly put Boyo, in the passenger seat. I'm trying to say this nicely. In the passenger seat, they forget about what he is capable of. At the end of the day, the beauty of Fortnite and the beauty of the way this, season and this year's working out, it's about team dynamic. If your team has the best dynamic with one another, doesn't matter how great of an individual you are, it's going to be hard to beat that. And right now, from what we've seen, Acorn, Boyo, Agers, man, they are a team to look out for.
As we go over to Foxy, more and more teams kind of making their way over in this direction. They're trying to make an early kind of play on some of these mountain ranges that are nearby. This is, I think, one of my favorite over towards Foxy. It has a nice center-ish style zone to where you can kind of rotate out no matter which direction the zone pulls overall. Obviously, if it does go north, you're going to run and rotate a little bit early, and then you can kind of take advantage of a lot of the other teams that do use those as split drops that are nearby.
Oh, this team's just holding up this high ground. A little bit of a standoff here. Talk about a team that has been entertaining some split drops. We get on over to the Whiffy Wharf once again. Just a new team that's actually deciding to kind of rotate into this one.
Andrew, Carbon, and Bologna. They're just kind of farming up, and I like this over here because this is in zone still. Even with it being contested, you have a lot of chances to kind of farm up, so you're not kind of stuck in a vault, so to say, in Crime City, not being able to farm up, not continue your resource building. But it's just a tough situation when you may not necessarily know exactly where everyone's positioned at. You see Andrew towards the side. I do expect that scanner to go down soon, if not one's already out revealing their positions.
Waiting for the first exchange to happen here. Both sides being a little timid right now. I understand why. You know, Bologna's team on the high ground is just looking out. They've had Bold Cut, Tyler's trio, or others kind of rotating consistently, but since that team was eliminated, notice they're not making that move, right? It's a new team that's there, so the dynamics
Nice,
are
good
playing
tag.
out a little bit slower, but it seems like this team can't wait much longer. Andrew, Carbon, and Bologna looking to kind of kick this one off. Oh, nice little piece up right there, taking control of the builds, giving him the advantage.
There you go. Get in.
Andrew also finding tags on the side here, so they're surely taking the lead here.
NAC is in the trio. This is a team on the leaderboard currently, Monster. They sit in 5th place. I know it's early, but they are on the bubble. And we talk about not being able to make mistakes. This is a good swing game. If they can win this fight, put themselves in a nice contention as one goes up over. Great shots on Andrew, forcing him to back up. Bologna feeling the pain as well. No shields. Those just get ripped off. They're forced to disengage, build up, take a little bit of elevation so they can kind of reset in this situation and really start to think, is this worth fighting? Did we get enough damage? Another scanner goes down, and I think that's going to help them formulate the strategy.
I'm not gonna lie, that was crazy by Azure. You gotta put some respect on that one. Very bold play of him. Jumps into the enemy box there, tries to take that 50-50, and he kind of sets up the pace here. Turns the tide, if you will, for his trio, but I'm not liking the material count by any means here for his team. I think they have to call it off here something shortly, but no. Annex and Azuri's trio once again starting to find those very critical tags here.
That's like a little bit of a risky play, and Andrew seems to find himself on the receiving end, just a little bit more damage. You see not as many shields, HP. So even though they might not necessarily know, this would be a good time to disengage, but as soon as that happens, the splash comes out, and they immediately try to jump their way back in. They have the extra pickaxe speed, go ahead and try to take pieces, but Andrew takes another shot, slowing things
Hit
down.
for 100.
Carbon is there to try to reinforce what they have.
Oh, he whiffed. Oh, no.
Andrew falls as well. That leaves Bologna as a solo by himself.
Oh, Bologna won't escape. No.
The trio in 5th place.
Bologna.
Listen, I don't know what came over this team, but all of a sudden they went from looking like, I don't know, a little questionable in the pocket there to just straight nasty, hitting all the tags that they needed to turn the whole fight around. And you know what? That's just confidence, man. The difference in this team fighting with like no mats, right? I was calling for the disengage. I'm thinking, hey, you got your tags, you know, just call it there. But no, they have been winning this fight round after round, and hey, they want to continue the trend here.
Now we talked about kind of in some of our other games, other teams.
He's looking for the refresh.
Especially prolonged fight for how long this one actually went. They got to start feeling that confidence in terms of having that surge. So they're just trying to loot up, get the material, and then they're going to start trying to rotate their way towards zone. Sprite, Boji, Core. Nearby, I don't know which team. You see, I think 3 trios in this area. Somebody must have got that armored van, a couple extra heals and loot, which is why you see so many people probably converging in this location to try to steal some of it away or get some damage.
Yeah, don't blame them. Sprite and Boji just moving away from the action right now. It's Diego's team who's kind of getting active right now. Seen some moments of greatness in the previous game. Ooh, Agers, Boyo Acorn seem to have caught someone out of position there themselves. This is right in between the seaport. We saw what they were doing before. Before they were playing a tower here, but it seems like with the zone pulling further west and north this time, they didn't really have enough time to get situated, so they find someone on a foot rotate instead.
Just deep into zone. It's usually where they find themselves, or at least threatening that. Scuffy's just by himself, so far separated. Luckily for him, his teammates are going to be able to stay alive, and the zone is moving north, like you just said. So there is going to be at least a chance to try to get that read loot back. What the loot is going to look like, that's going to be a different question. As the Oxy, Jojo Fishy, Pikes, a lot of action kind of going down around the map, and that's not the action I expected to see, but I feel like at this point I should.
I was like, oh, nice. You know, I love Aoxy, love, you know, casting over him. Been doing it for years. Let's see what he's got in the replays. Yeah, it's a little damage. Nothing crazy.
Just trying to relay some extra heals in towards the zone. Minis, very, very important, especially when you are fighting for that surge. And they're just trying to go ahead and try to use those medkits when they're as close as possible to one of those geysers. And that geyser is going to be a huge tool for them to try to get into zone from where they're currently at.
Oh yeah, they'll make it easy.
Wager spot. Right outside the Foxy. Floodgates here. He's got a trio underneath him. Yeah, Skizzers and Onsite.
Right next.
No way they don't know he's in the cone. They actually don't know he's in the cone. Almost pieces up that player there. Almost would have preferred for him to just throw a cone in the box. Almost had it. Nonetheless, see the confidence coming out of him right now. Big plays being made here.
I think he got the call from one of his teammates. He's weak, completely turns. Trying to take that Hido, which is all those zeros. He's in a tough situation. Now the third party coming in. Danger is going to go down. Chris trying to alleviate some of the pressure, trying to figure out where Wager is at, so that way he can try to find a reunite. But there's still that full trio they were initially fighting right above, and they're all going to try to drop down low to try to clean up the eliminations, get the loot, get the HP back up, and even with the scanner down to reveal some positions, it's not going to slow anything down.
I think it's a new team. A new team enters with the scanner, by the way. So they've seen the glow up that's happening right here. There's a lot going on right now. And here now we have 3 trios in a fight here. Look at this.
The duo that's stuck there, Wagers all the way on the low ground, just hoping nobody continues to fight their way downward. His teammates up above. Just trying to play it as a solo, just in case things go awry and they get separated. Liquid, Revort, KSM, thinking about this situation, and they're just going to go ahead and bet against it, disengage on out. Just a little bit too dangerous for their liking, so they're going to continue to try to move north, which gives them a little bit of flexibility because they can always stop, look back at some of these teams that are rotating late outside of zone, and try to use that as a way to get the upper hand.
River's got to move. His team's long gone. Like, he could get caught out pretty quickly there. Meanwhile, back to Flooded Frogs. You got to think Jagger, Silic, and King here are downloading the fact that this place was unlooted completely now that they've managed to rotate in.
Ooh, they're finding Fallen. Winning that off-spawn fight is not necessarily going to be enough. It almost seems like he's by himself. His teammates might not necessarily be anywhere nearby. There might be one player still stuck inside a flooded.
Oh.
Gosh.
What was that?
Now's your chance to shine.
I have no more comments for this one.
Chat, I'm just looking at the chat. Can you guys keep a count for us, a rolling count of how many times it's happened today? And I'm just
The fall damage is crazy.
not in the actual finals, where the mistake would probably mean 10 times more and hurt you 10 times more, if not, you know, physically, mentally, emotionally, for sure.
The homie Fallen is still running for his life.
Back into every broadcast finals game and see if we set a world record today for the most fall damages in a group setting.
Here it comes.
It's got to be at this point.
They're just sitting there above. They got the revive. They knew they couldn't get contested because it is just a solo player running around. Fallen, He's just in those tunnels trying to figure out a way out. There is multiple exits, but you see, and he's blocking one off on the other side, trying to bait him on over, and he's going to go to the other side. And this is a duo chasing him, so if he can't separate one into a 1v1, that might be an opportunity to take the play, but he just converges right back into a situation where there's only one way in and one way out realistically, but they're not slowing down, trying to bait the switch. First one's going to be a haymaker on the
Teleport out. Teleport.
but guess who's waiting on the other?
He's on the other side. Boom, shotgun.
And he
Ah.
him up and takes him down easy.
You know what? If nothing else, this team has got a lot of game knowledge under their belt. The reads there perfectly done by King, hunting down the opponent, and then of course having the team on the outside.
Cube's about to, yep,
It's the little
get a couple shots off.
HQ watched it all go down, by the way. He could have jumped on Silic there, but opted to kind of just wait for his team to catch up.
And luckily it happened when it did, with HQ not necessarily jumping in, not even really hitting a lot of those shots when he was trying to third party, because they were already down there in the tunnels. They already have Surge. You got to imagine the resources, materials, everything that they need in the zone not too far away, so they can play a little bit of the waiting game. Prep, Vanish, and HQ just trying to rotate in. Like I said, the zone is not too far away, so a team like this with so much empty space on that edge can kind of pick and choose exactly where they want to position.
Speaking about these positions, the zone is starting to develop. Much different end game happening here. We're pulling somewhat to the center mass, moving away from these huge mountains. Look at this. What's happening north of the Pump Power? How do we have 4 teams here? Wait, my count's off. There's actually 5 teams here. What is going on right now? They're just overstaying their welcome, it seems like, at the moment. Diego's trio, one of the few kind of sitting here, opting to just med miss in a storm right now. Surge is active, mind you, so let's see everything starting to develop here. No Seek on this trio.
Almost feels like Veer, Dash, possibly already having that reboot card, trying to make it towards the zone. Or maybe even towards the north. They do have an abundance of med kits, some extra HP heals. So there could be an opportunity that we see their trio back into the game later on. Noah, Kaz's Chaos. With that game number 1 victory, that opened up the hopeful heights. Game number 2, they get a nice second place. And with the zone pulling as far as it has, I can almost see why.
Lasered. Wow. Nice shooting.
He's easily going to be able to connect with some shots, get them above, so they don't have to worry about currently taking any damage.
Noah's clutching up for his team right now. Big time. Big time. This damage right here, they desperately need it. And I mean, even if it's just for a couple of moments that they're above, that is a huge difference maker right now. To buy them some time to fish for more damage. Imagine they could have been this trio directly below. However, they're just flirting with that line now. Oh no, we need those tags to come through. Chaos misses some of those real important ones, and now the Surge starts to flip onto their heads here. They're finding themselves below, and look, they don't have that many heals. I'm thinking the play might be put a splash down and get out there or something. They gotta find an opportunity here.
Come on, Noah.
And it's not going to get any easier. You have 2 highly elevated areas with Lone Wolf and Brutal all nearby with teams positioned. So if they try to make this rotation while getting active Surge, it's not necessarily going to be the easiest thing, but 45 above the damage threshold. They're saying, hey, it may not be much. It may be something we have to worry about later, but at least it's enough so we can focus on our rotation without taking that active Surge damage that you see other teams in the background currently affecting.
Yeah, big difference there in the Gold Splash to allow them to make that rotate there. Just the difference in finding just a few tags, right, to give him some room to work with. This is it's going to be hard to climb back from that one for Noah's team. And do keep in mind, they already dropped the game. Game 1 earned themselves 0 points in a monster game 2.
Whoa.
Even the score, so here and now will be the determining factor, most likely, whether or not they'll be able to make it through on consistency. Meanwhile, here's a team that's been playing deep in the storm. Oyo, Aegis, Acorn. Breaking a tower right now. I wonder if they're setting up for the launch pad. Yep, sure are.
It's almost very, very similar to their Major 1 victory of how they were rotating in some of those later games, using a lot of the launch pads that are naturally there, staying deep in the zone, getting their surge, and late rotating out with the abundance of hills, but it quickly switches on over to a 5-tick Medmis smoke, which is going to be Acorn's last, immediately having to go out. And they got to kind of sit in this position to get full use out of that Medmis smoke, so that way they can probably let the zone try to open up, let teams reposition, and try to find an easy crevice so they can position their way inside.
Yeah, I was actually most concerned about the fact that Noah's team is here, and clearly Noah's team is in a bit of a desperate situation. They found themselves in a fight for positioning here, and he's lost his squad, and he goes for it and wins it in the end. The Siphon's going to keep him alive. Jug, not much in there to work with, and pressure from the lobby now is going to send him back, so they only earned 6 points this game. Pretty difficult position to be in now.
It's just tough. It's just tough just seeing another game escape you, especially after the confidence they had after game 2. NX Missouri trying to hold on to their position on their leaderboard with their trio. 486 damage above the threshold. That's that constant early game fights over towards Whiffy Wharf, getting all 3 of those eliminations and the damage along the way. Not as much to worry about for them as we switch on to DK, Polar, and Cynics. They got 6 eliminations. That's going to put them a healthy amount of damage above the threshold, and we're seeing how they were not only able to pick up the eliminations monster, but they were able to save their teammate as well.
It's a great save here. Take a look at what's happening right now. Polar, Cynics, and Decay tracking straight players all outside the bills. They're currently sitting in 6 right now. Big 6 eliminations too. This is a hefty amount of elims for just starting up the end game zone 7 right now. There it is, players walking in and just picking up so much material here to work with. Definitely love to see it.
It's their 8th elimination overall. Now they have exotics, they have mythics, they have an abundance of materials and loot. They just need to figure out how they're going to get out of that situation, being pressured down below. Jardu Silic, King on Expo, 1,000 damage above the threshold. They find another elimination as they continue to put down pressure on the Polus and his trio across. And with this rotation, they're just kind of keep an eye, taking note of where every team is currently positioned so they can try and rotate on. He loses his teammates left and right, but they're only down. Now he can try to make a heroic play. It is going to be a 1v1. Champo on the other side. Dave baiting. He has the full.
He's got it.
Boxes up and saves the day. No pun intended.
And he gets both his teammates, by the way. Look at this.
Day and night.
Save them both right now. He's going to put his team right back in the game. Just enough time between him and the Storm to potentially
double res. Go.
However, what a comeback situation there. Take a look at it from Clover Yawn's perspective there. So he gets
Wow, he whiffed the shotgun.
and then Day follows up with the 2-piece pickup here, and that was a very clean edit onto Champo. Unfortunate for them, he was just lost in the sauce there. Didn't really know where the exit was. Meanwhile, Acorn's team played the Storm line perfectly to the very end and then goes straight up to high ground now. And do keep in mind, they were one of the last teams to rotate in, but they had max material count because they had all the early surge that they needed.
And they also have an abundance of extra heals, which you see a lot of the resources lacking at this stage of the game in a far pool, which means they're not going to be able to hold on to height. They have to jump down. They have chances here as they're rotating above every one of these teams as soon as they get to the front, so to try to kind of crank up yet again, but they're going to get challenged on the other side. That's Core jumping on over. Poyo saw it, try to put some damage down, pressured the other team, finds his way back to Agers, but they have to give up height in order to make that happen.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those things, right, where you can fight for high ground. However, because they opted to rotate early, Sprite's team rightfully took height there. And look, they're just playing the long con game here, editing out, saying, yeah, y'all want to build on top of us? Don't worry, we got something for you. The Sprite seems pretty content to commit to this high ground right now, a little prematurely, loses his teammate in the process here. And just like that, they're down a 2-man action here for this last endgame. Start looking to close out here. Meanwhile, Decay and Cynics, after a monster mid-game here, find themselves at 8 eliminations. Still getting busy, still getting active, though. A lot of plays in the tank here for them.
Yeah, decent amount of materials, not the most healthy. Double rotation. And they have that mythic collateral AR, which shreds through these builds. And if it can land onto a target. Almost an easy elimination as Phenom takes out Zolpix. Dage trying to alleviate the pressure, even though he saved Jan before. That luck has come to an end, so they're going to be stuck as a duo trying to work their way through the rest of this game.
Look at this. Boyo, Aegis, and Acorn on the low ground right now playing front side. Met with resistance, though. A team's just going to box them out right here. The reads, though, showing them that they can go left. Gonna do just that. Dave's team on the top side, though, just kind of sitting still, sitting pretty here. Take a look. Fight's gonna break down here, potentially on this low ground layer.
Taking their time, crouching, and they're just trying to pounce all at once. I saw that as a chance to take down a duo, but they find a solo on the other side from one team to the next. Nothing's going to slow them down, or at least not just yet, as the shots continue to fire back. That's true on the backside of their tarp that's trying to make their way in. Acorn gets Koyo gets dropped in, but he figures out a quick way to escape and survive. But you see there's no extra heals in their inventory.
Yeah, he shouldn't have made it out of there, but somehow jumps out of the box in the final seconds. Ajaxi's trio is on high ground, by the way, at the current moment. Meanwhile, King, Jargu, and Silic might just be doing enough to basically break 200-point threshold. We know if they can do that, they all but right their way to the grand finals for the first time for that trio. We'll see if it can happen for Ajaxi, Pikes, and Jojo Fishy. They've been in this position before. They know how to play these types of high grounds. I can see them definitely securing this dub right now, but it's not going to be easy. Take a look at what teams are still alive here. Boyo, Aegis, and Acorn are now starting to really heat up on the low ground.
Yeah, that's his third elimination throughout these moving zones. That Netman clicked up, looking toward the backside of the zone, trades a shot, but he just takes a little bit too much damage. Luckily, though, the Siphon comes in, so a little bit of HP lost.
Oh no! Poyo goes down. Come on. Ugh. Dude, what is going on? Silic's down. King is down.
Unfolding for them, it's all up to Acorn now. Just clutching out points here as Agers is down, drops his mats for Acorn here. Acorn trying to wait for the bounce back. Didn't get to pick up those bandages, unfortunately. Now sizing up on the other side. What is he gonna do here?
Come on, Acorn. Oh no! Gosh. Why are they playing so bad today? Wow.
The cast occurs. This time it's the luck of the production, you know? We showed Aoxy. He had a little moment, he had a little slip up in this game, but game 3 ends up being their lucky one today as they get that victory royale and they breeze their way through that high ground hold. And you know, it was a little bit of an interesting end game, going through a full building. All of the teams deciding, hey, you know what, we're gonna try to opt into this low ground layer, and that was the demise of the lobby. In the end, you notice they kind of just never got contested after they had the chance for height. Take a look at it from Pikes' angle here and all of these other types of plays that went down for them. Jacob, it was just so smooth sailing.
Yeah, it was like top 7, top 8. Every other team outside of them were duos or solos. They had no reason to drop down up until here, basically to seal the deal and to finish the game. They have booked their ticket to the Major 2 finals, but that is game 3 done. Zeke, Kelly, Vivid, what did you guys think of that action?
I feel like I'm in shock. I don't know what happened, but the fact that for like so long, there was no one on height. But for Aoxy, Jojo Fishy, and Pikes, they were like, this is it. This is our moment. This is going to take us to the Major 2 finals. And now we will be seeing them next weekend. Congratulations to the trio. You've just got to feel so good for them. I'm sure they're going crazy.
Oh, 100%. And we saw them make it into the finals as a trio last major as well. They did end things off in 18th place, which as a relatively new trio is a pretty good position to be in. But with that game that we just saw right there, you know, I'm excited to see how they're going to be playing out in the finals. For me, though, watching them control high ground here, because it looked kind of like, you know, Acorn's trio just gave it up. There was someone that tried to steal from it, but even the team that tried to steal backed off as well. And so when high ground was open for about 30 seconds, that's when Aoxy was able to take advantage of it and go for that high ground. And, you know, for me, Vivid, sometimes the best way to win a game is to let everyone else play the game for you. So as just so much chaos is going down on the low ground, they're kind of just giving Aoxy the win.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those scenarios where the team that actually ended up stealing the high ground, they just ran out of mats. They tried to drop down Aoxy's team. They were fully aware of that. They saw that happen, went up, and they just went up so late, right? That was like 10th, 11th zone at that point. Very, very hard for any trio to kind of contest them up there. So Kelly's kind of like, oh yeah, everybody else is just playing the game for them. Would have been really hard to go ahead and contest them. But a great game for Aoxy and Co right there, because they were in 20th place on the leaderboard prior to that game. So consistency, top 5 in that category, wasn't looking too good for them. So that victory royale secures the deal for them.
Oh man, you've already just made me nervous because we only have 2 more games left to go, with plenty of these trios trying to make it into that top 5 in consistency or get that victory royale. We'll talk about more of that after this break. That's right, I know. We'll be right back. We'll see you in a second. Okay, bye. surprised they've not tried to target that victory royale.
You know what I think it is? I think when they watched groups 1 and 2, they were really inspired by our top trios out of those groups. Obviously, Peterbot's trio in group 1, well, he didn't win a single game either. And then you look to Clix's trio in group 2, well, they didn't win a game. So if they don't have to win games, well, then neither does the reigning champs from Major 1. But no, in reality, Ager's, Acorn, and Pollo, they just haven't had exactly the right setup that they are used to having. They do such a good job kind of sticking to the storm throughout the early and mid game and then rotating in a little bit later once we do get into that end game, and it just hasn't really worked out for them just yet. They gave up high ground so early, Vivid, and there was even a moment where I kind of wondered if it was a bit of a misplay, but obviously it's Acorn, Agers, and Pollo. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, I feel like actually that would be one of those games where they as a trio could probably learn a lot from it, in my opinion. I feel like some of the key points during the game, like for example, Kelly saying, yeah, they gave up high ground, which I actually didn't mind so much because it's like, oh, they had so many materials that they could just continuously go to the front side of the moving zone, kind of claim some areas around there all the time, but they kind of staggered themselves a little bit, right? They kind of held back during those moving zones and didn't actually go for any of that space up there. And then also, in Pollo going in for the 1v1 in the box there against Polis, he kind of like turned around after he was knocked down and didn't see Acorn or Agers there. So I think a little bit of miscommunication right there. So I feel like that was one of those games they could probably learn from, and they'll note that down. But 4th place, 8 eliminations, still a very good game for that trio.
Yeah, right. Let's just work on the consistency. I like kind of what Kelly's saying. If those other trios didn't get crazy, like, let's just keep some of the strategies in the back pocket. We'll save it for finals. I like that. You know who's really impressing me here? Silic, Jargu, and Kingling. I feel like I'm so sorry. I am not familiar with this trio. I mean, all the time, of course, we're getting new talent as new people decide, I'm going to go ahead and play Fortnite. I'm going to go get good at this. And these guys are really showing up. I'm super impressed. They are very far ahead of everyone else in the lobby, and we've continued to see Kingling in this kind of like solo situation where he's just super clutching, these valuable points, whether it's eliminations or just living long enough to earn placement. Like, these look like top tier competitors.
Zeke, you said that, you don't know too much about them, but I think that's going to be changing over the next few majors because this trio has just really been surprising all of us. And for me, Vivid, what really stuck out was when they kind of had advantage and they had mats and heals, they were staying at the front of zone on low, which is a great way to get eliminations, more refreshes. But once they started losing health, losing mats, they stayed to the backside of it. And we talked about at the start of the show, those micro adjustments as the games are going on. And we can see that although 6th place is their worst performing game yet, being able to get 7 eliminations, it's what's holding them up in our 4th place spot.
Yeah, they're doing very, very well. Another play that kind of stood out to me, that game right there, would be Polis. I mean, he was just on an absolute tear as a solo, even taking out the likes of Pollo in a 1v1 situation. Finally also taking out Agers at one point of that as well, and Acorn as well on the Lurgon, right? Just continuously was finding these pickups. And as you can see here, he's going to end with 6 of the 10 total eliminations for his trio right there. Incredible game from them. 3rd place, 10 eliminations. Going to be the best game for this trio by far.
And I like Polis. It's crazy to me. He's only been in 1 FNCS finals before this. And I mean, watching, those games right now, I think we might be able to make that number 2 for Major 2 finals.
Whoa, I like it. I like it, Kelly. Okay. Guys, 2 games left to go. If we're playing for consistency, that's gone. That's out the window. So we need to target a victory royale here and now. As the pressure mounts, we got to join that battle bus once again to see how this next game plays out. So Jacob PR, Monster D-Face, take it away.
I would be lying right now, Monster, if I said I wasn't necessarily on the edge of my seat waiting to see how these next 2 games will play out. Yesterday, the point threshold, 203 points. With how well some of these teams are playing, they might just be 1 game away.
Yeah, and it came really close for Clix and his trio. When I saw them go down in 203, I was like, whoa. But here we go. Game 4 is ready. Let's jump on. So it shows you though, Jacob, no one is safe. And you know what? I respect Acorn for, them not just coming in, taking a quick victory royale, give us the action, be that big name team remaining in the lobby. And you know what? Keep it interesting for us across the board, because at the end of the day, we're all here for entertainment and to have fun. For game 4 kicking off, Agers, Acorn, and Pollo, they clearly have a very sound strategy, and I like that they're just maintaining that strategy, right? Not going out of an ordinary,
Dropping masked.
forcing a high ground agenda.
Yeah, and
Unconned.
you know, a team like this, Agers, Foyle,
Haven't caught a win yet.
Kelly was kind of talking about it, you know, with some of
That
our
is
other opponents in
crazy.
the other group stages, not necessarily winning game. Their mind is on getting reps in these style of lobbies. If they can compete and not win a game, but still stay at the top of the leaderboard, that goes to show that when the pressure is on during finals, they may be able to flip that switch when it matters. But back on over to Crime City, the contested fight all day long, and it does look like Champo is already trying to go for a sneaky play where you would typically think that he's trying to go ahead and get that vault, open it up with the rest of his team. He's actually looking for anything that he can to start this one off.
Yeah, I like this play right here. I definitely can appreciate how personal this is now becoming between Champo's trio and Chris is on the other side of the wall. One thing to note is that Chris Wagerbot, they've just been playing a little bit sharper on the day. Definitely gathered and garnered up a lot more points. Meanwhile, Cosmo, Doug Beast, and Champo kind of struggling to get past this early game and really set up themselves for success for an end game. So they're going to be one of the few teams that are going to be dependent on that victory royale now, right? If you didn't have
Straight to the black market.
strong showing in game 3, you're pretty much off the pace right now. You need a huge game in game 4, kind of be in that consistency, and that's why I want to see what Noah Plays and team can do to adjust, right? They somehow found themselves in the money and then out of the money, all in one quick swing.
Dude, everyone dropped flooded. What is this?
Here's
2 games ago, no one dropped it. Oh!
uncontested, and it seems like, hey, a couple teams did decide to come on in.
Yeah, whether they're VOD reviewing or just simply watching the entertainment on the stream, they saw it, and now they're trying to take it for themselves. But a last player, that's going to be Clixie, going to be the first one going down. Fallen takes damage from above. Drewbot just trying to go for the side shot to finish it off, but they need to be careful. They need to finish this quick. The third party is already in the distance, trying to loom in. The Menman smoke goes
Oh,
down.
dude, don't sell.
Time, Lay's not able to land
Oh my god, dude, you're whiffing.
from the other side, crashes in, but luckily it is a 3v2, a huge
Wow.
numbers advantage that has saved the day in this fight.
It's the first for them, too, winning a fight this early that fast. They've had a bit of a, I don't know, a back and forth, if you will, on most of their early game situations. Look at this. KSM grab for Liquid right now. Trying to set up quick ambush. Seem to have a
Cully's
slight
going
lead
down.
right now over Cully. Cully though answers back onto
Oh!
a monster shot here. KSM goes into a defensive position. Liquid also loses his shield, and this team's not giving up without a fight. And Fallen with no health. It's a monster shotgun shot there too. And the Siphon now brings him right back into the action.
Full boxed up his opponent, got out, and still went back in for the re-challenge. And I like the decision. Instead of just getting greedy, trying to finish off that last and final elimination, there's still a lot of players hunting for Surge in the north side of the map, something that they themselves has been going through all day long. And that third-party team finally revealed their position, going up and over the visual audio, playing a huge role in them trying to stay down low, survive. But they are trying to look for that down. They know Raybark is down, possible loot, Siphon for the HP, which is important, but they just can't seem to find it.
Yeah, this is a great update here for Bowl Cut Tyler's team. That means they were not landed on, right? So they get their drop, they get to rotate really quickly, and notice the difference. They get straight to the action. So they are a team that is absolutely dependent on early game battles, whether they're being landed on or rotate into the action. I like this positioning here so far. It does seem to be working in their favor.
And I will say, if you're not necessarily high up on the leaderboard, Monster, and you still wanted to try to win through consistency, it will come through getting a good number of eliminations and maybe a top 5, top 3. At least you put yourself in contention of getting 2 different scenarios to qualify. But it just means a very, very aggressive style of game. And it doesn't look like anybody favors this position. Even with the height advantage, they're going to choose to kind of disengage and try to loot up just a little bit more. You see a huge lack in materials here, and I do agree with this.
See it? Rear dash, Seek on the other side at the Hopeful Heights now. Opting to contest Noah W plays, so this is, I think, a surprise even for Noah's team, right? They came here to kind of ease up off the pressure, and you know what? It might even be Acorn's trio potentially rotating on the outskirts. We'll keep a close eye on who's that. But this is just not looking great right now. Yeah, I saw Ager's name tag. It is Acorn and Ager's on the way.
And they're a team, they always are looking for surge through these bases, and as soon as they kind of hear that a fight's going down at Hopeful, they know it's contested, and I think Veer, Dash, and Seek probably felt some of those shots or heard the pressure coming in. They're just going to disengage. They don't necessarily want to put their back towards that direction, so they're just going to move out altogether. And hopefully Noah, Chaos, and Kaz has got that same memo, so they don't just kind of run out there thinking the original team that we're fighting is gone, so it's safe, because there's that danger looming, and they have a huge elevation advantage over Hopeful Heights.
Well, the crazy part is Acorn and the rest of the team have noticed Veer's trio, and they're actually focusing them now, the team that was winning the engagement at the Hopeful Heights. And you know what? Dash, Seek, and Veer rotated out on, I would say, a good call there. However, they've now officially showed a small sign of weakness to Boyo. And look, Boyo's already on the move here, looking to cut them off, and they're hot on the heels.
Yeah, and they already got some early damage on the Seek as he was trying to alleviate some of the pressure. It's definitely turned things around from where they were trying to motion things into as Acorn continues to push up. He's going to be on the flank just a little bit. Poyo's taking the charge on the other side, and Ager's just kind of feeling the situation out, waiting to see what kind of breaks down here so he knows which teammate to help overall as Poyo continues to land shots onto that team down below, breaking shields and even bringing Veer down to 50 HP or less.
I love how one small decision in the whole entire dynamic changes. Like, they had, and I kid you not, a great lead over Noah's full trio. If you just go back and look at it, and all of a sudden now they're forced into a very desperate spot now. Who wants to be in a box fight with a 4x Boyo? And then you got Acorn here, the 4x as well. And Agers, of course, to back it up. Like, this is terrible.
This is just one of those situations where you even kind of look back at Noah, Chaos, and Kaz. Oh, thank gosh that happened. We're able to disengage, play the rest of this game out. So if they got a high placing in this one, you know who to thank for the most part, as Poyo just takes a little bit too much damage. Great shot by Dash, but instead of following up on it, he tries to reunite with the rest of his team to make sure they don't get pressured by Acorn and Agers.
I'm just saying, man, no one wants to fight the champions, right? And that's what's happening here.
Oh my god.
Dash is like, Monster, hold my soda.
Poyo, what is going on, bro?
He's got the lead up.
He's not locked in. He is hating life right now.
Look at this.
Agers has to bounce.
Agers now punished.
Wow.
Starting to turn on its side here.
Almost see the cost though. 30.
Where are they at for points?
Lot sacrificed here, and he just left the roof open, and Dash dropped right on top. Poyo goes down. But it does look like they're going to be able to disengage. The big question is if they actually have the reboot card. Because if they do, it's not going to be too long before they get Poyo back into the game. But if they don't, that's where they're going to run into some sticky situations.
Yeah. I'll take the blame for the caster curse there. You know, it's been a while.
All right, they're fifth. They're clear by basically 40.
It's okay, guys. Give it to me. Here, though. Silic, King, and Jargu.
Dude, they are riding the struggle bus.
Seems like they've spotted out Boji's trio rotating around the side. 201 points, right? So a couple of points away from potentially being in the clear for a qualification slot. We don't know what that cutoff's going to be, but 200 seems to be about the sweet spot you want to start jumping into. Be guaranteed through.
Obviously, eliminations can change things up, but going into this game, this was the team on the line. 5th place in the consistency leaderboard. So obviously, where a team like this finishes is going to be so important because they just want to keep themselves in contention, not have to do too much in that last and final game of the day, not let the nerves get to them. And you see them kind of staggering themselves back as far as Whiffy. The zone is pulling towards the south. It does have an eastern lean on it, and they have no HP, or at least Azuri doesn't. So they're just really fighting for scraps that might have been left behind on this side of the map.
Yeah, I'm cool with it for now. Just because they got this full trio takedown here.
Good search.
Yeah, you can see how it ends up working out. Yeah, they've just like farmed that team over and over at the Whiffy every single game.
You see my question.
They get the card, Jacob.
Yep, early on asked, do they have Poyo's card? Were they able to get it out before they disengaged? They did. They immediately went back behind Hopeful Heights, got the reboot, and just immediately start making their way back over to Mass Meadows. Because remember, it's uncontested. They know exactly every piece of loot that they did leave behind. So in a moment here, we might not even notice that Pollo had went down with his loadout. Not this one. Let's give it a moment.
Give him a couple seconds. Couple minutes, he'll be back in the action here. Oh, look at this, though. They do have a more favorable zone, again, comparatively to the last times we've seen them rotating out of the Deep Storm.
By that bike there, they're looking for their armored vehicle that does kind of land nearby. Who looted it? What's left behind? Can they use it for themselves to rotate in? I think that's a good part of their strategy overall. Is Edge, level 1 cook, Bobby, positioned just outside of Foxy Floodgates before you kind of dip down into the crevice. Just trying to get as much surge as possible, but you can kind of see in the minimap, everybody here is kind of spread out into towers of their own. So in terms of opportunity, there's not going to be much unless somebody makes a mistake. As you see Bobby over peaking on that one, gets dropped down about 50 or less HP. And as long as they have the heals, the extra, that might not be too bad of a situation. But if they don't, that's where it's going to become one of those situations where they're losing a lot of resources early on.
Yeah, you can see they're kind of in a competitive point range right now. That 100 to 104 threshold being the difference between kind of hanging out inside the top 10 or not at the moment. Brutal Zol picks, though. Seaport City seem to have kind of simmered out in their favor this time around. Take a look at how that all played out for them. So, came off the back of a full team wipe of Logan Boy and the rest of his squad. There goes Mike's takedown as well. Back on over to Seek, Dash, and Veer after pretty incredible turn of events. They had to base down for a couple moments, and they've seemed to have gotten their bearings back under them.
I was going to say, not a lot of gold, so I don't see them making their way towards the black market. And then I see a whole nother trio. I can already tell you that's Acorn, Agers, and Pollo revisiting the black market. They have the abundance of gold, so a lot of those extra heals that they're about to get is really going to be useful. You see Seek, Dash, Veer just kind of using the fire pit. Again, you want to kind of conserve the Chug Jug. You want to conserve the Med Mist Smoke, so that's HP that you can use later on in the game. And if you're lucky enough to carry all the way towards the end game, that's really where it is potentially going to be a difference maker.
Yeah, gotta bring it to the end game. We'd love to see it. Dash, Seek, and Veer. What's going on here? Little dead side rotate here down to the side. I was going to say,
Here we go.
they're going to get right back into Agers.
Yeah.
Now they are. They know it too.
Yeah, they're just continuously looking off in that direction. Probably got to see it, hear it in the feed, knowing not too many teams land back there. So if a reboot did happen, you almost can kind of make good guesses to who it is. But they're not just going to kind of get lost. They want to make their way in towards zone. They know how hard these games have actually been in terms of being able to position correctly. As you jump on board Amplify, Lorzis, and Shiny Cat, they were one of those teams. They made it pretty deep into that last game. They've given themselves an opportunity here with 90 points on the leaderboard. They're down outside the consistency, but if they can have another one of those performances, figure out a way to kind of mirror it, they'll be at least in the driver's seat, able to control their own destiny going into Game 5.
No one in the vicinity, though, here. HQ's team's just kind of hanging out right now. Shiny Cat. Their team's doing pretty decent, Jacob. 90 points, not bad. We'll be keeping a close eye on Amplify. Lori there. Let's get on over to Days Trio. Not sure where Days hanging. Probably at the base of this setup right here. Depending on Aloe. Yawn up top to fish for tags right now.
Fucking goats.
And you're kind of seeing the effect of how these games have been throughout the course of the day. If you're able to kind of box up one of these surge bases, less and less risk that you want to take to try to end up in a close box fight. This Kaz's actually does go down to Agers, so they go ahead and clash against Noah and Chaos. That is going to be left. And even though you might be down on surge, not necessarily doing the most up until this point, you have a great position in zone. And a team like this will probably be kind of hedging their bets on they can hold this position, they can find surge later on. You see them in the distance there on the bridge, moving up onto another team, trying to break down the high ground, even though Kaz's was just dropped, knocked overall. Noah, Chaos, waste no time trying to get him back up, and you see they're waiting until they rotate to start to use those heals because they don't want to waste it just trading for surge.
Well, here's a team that's on the bubble right now, Yusuf, Phenom, and Eulogy. And they're in a desperate situation here. Big pressure coming in as they try to make their way to the edge of the storm here for Zone 5. Shots coming in from the mountaintops.
Are you low?
Potentially Daze base there, but they've also had a bit of a back and forth. Seems to be with the team next door. From their perspective, you can see this squad sitting nice and pretty here. Back talk with plenty of heals to work with here. Lead over the opponents. Seen some pretty decent plays come out of Tex here today. But as of right now, still a battle for the points here for most. Meanwhile, underneath, look at Polar, Cynics, Decay just kind of lurking about, making their rotate.
Oh my god.
Just chilling in the sewers.
I was thinking, I don't know what the maze is like underneath. I saw them sneaking up, but I was like, is this gonna work? Where does that tunnel leave? Right underneath a full trio monster.
To me, it's just like such a 4-day visual. Like 3 guys in blue suits, just like in the sewer. Like, there's so much happening here. And they're just hanging out, you know, no problems. They got the damage they need. And they're at 135 points too. Respectable seat at the table right now.
Yeah, he's dead.
They started this game 4th on the consistency leaderboard, moving up into 3rd with those eliminations. So things already looking right for them. As long as they continue to pull zones, there's not much they're going to have to do at this stage in the game, especially with 2 teams positioned above. There's a full fight breaking out just outside of where they're at, Foxy Floodgates. Josh lost his teammate Bleaks. Him and FNX just trying to stay alive. His drops dropped down to just 9 HP, trying to survive. Mini's going down. They just got to figure out a way to kind of reunite, and they do so with these, which means the splashes are going to come out. Even though they lost their teammate, they're still going to have to make this journey over to the other side of the map. Almost a max pull for everybody on this side of the zone.
Crook here somehow falling himself at the bottom of this base. Edge trying to come down for the save. There's an opponent here. Just listening to what's going on. Here comes a double save. Okay, it's going to be a quick pickup. Meanwhile, Decay, Polar, and Cynics exit the sewers. They're making their rotate right now amongst all the chaos here. And this is going to be very telling now. A lot of these names that we're looking at right here are very much in the conversation for a top 5 overall spot. They're going to end up on top of one another. So there's going to be some significant battles unfolding here shortly between some of the stronger teams on the lobby.
Callbacks, bitch.
Jig sees that. Polish just kind of full tarping their way in. And typically you see some teams trying to tarp and use as little builds as possible to try to make their way toward the edge. They're just trying to make sure that they're safe. 223 above the damage threshold. They know for now it's not going to be a main focal point, but as this game continues, like we've seen from the 3 previous games, that threshold continued to rise each and every moment as they take that slow rotation all the way out towards the side. They make their way in just to the south of Prime City. There's one team positioned right next, and maybe a couple more after. And see another team trying to make their way outward. Only 61 damage above the threshold. Not where you necessarily expect to see them.
You give him a couple seconds, and the damage started to rack in. Take a look at Bobby going on. The storm right now. Build open. Unfortunately, will fall there. Target damage here onto Yusuf, Eulogy, and Phenom. That's another squad that was, again, very much in contention for a top 5. Case falls here. Decay, Cynics, and Polar taking full advantage of the loot opportunity there.
One wall, bro. I'm dead.
You see the danger creeping there on the low ground as many teams start to kind of slide into the zone here. They got to move a little further if they want to ease up the lobby pressure. It's costing them a lot of maps right now.
Though, he can't build, and then you're the only one.
Yeah, a lot of the hard material gone. Just 7 pieces of metal left. Zone is going to open up, free up a little bit of space where they know not too many players have already contested that side of the map. But more and more players trying to rotate in, use that slow side rotation to their advantage. 87 though for Sprite, Boji, and Core. They immediately try to go to work, firing back. No shots really connect onto them. Instead, they're the ones that are doing the punching. Find an elimination and some. They get the damage, 194 above the threshold, but a momentary target from the rest of the lobby. As things slow down, the dust settles. They figure out that second elimination, and they're able to get that loot as a pick-me-up opportunity.
Very smart too. They grabbed that down body and tossed it back so they could secure the loot there, not allowing that other team to see that there was actually loot being, you know, kind of generated here, because that makes a difference. Teams will get desperate and jump in for it. So little plays like that, giving them some room to work with right now. Meanwhile, that's all at the front side of the moving zone here. All the rest of the teams are still just trying to find their place in safely here. Meanwhile, Agers, Acorn, Pollo under some serious pressure right now and still battling the hunt for damage right now. Feel a little worse for wears. I'm not feeling too good about their points just yet. They will have to make this end game before they feel pretty safe and sound. There it is. They are now officially below here, Jacob.
Yeah, Pollo going down, a little bit of wrench into their game plan. Cost them a lot of time and damage, and now Surge is activated every 7 seconds. They're able to fire some shots on over, but it's really not going to do anything towards that threshold. They weren't able to connect. 39 below. They target out Polar, but again, missed opportunities. They still find themselves 9 below the threshold. DK going for some loot, and that's the player that they're going to try to target. He does have his full trio there nearby. They're basically dipping their toes in one after the next to try to get loot all on their own, but now it's go time. 6, and they fall 33 below. Agers, Pollo, Acorn quickly running out of time. It's now or never.
I love this. Agers making the big plays right now for his trio here. When it matters most, aggressively. Unfortunately, he couldn't actually secure the box up there now. Pollo's forced to also hunt here. This is such a desperate spot for them to be in right now. Pollo's going to have to just risk it all. He boxes him and no, couldn't find the follow-up. Seems like his shotgun might have been out of gas there, but 12 above now is going to sit Acorn here. Acorn's got to find a chance. Steals a little bit of the med miss, but he knows there's a whole trio under there. Goes for the tree anyways because he has to, and they dive on him. And I'm not sure they even managed to earn much points there, but it is going to come down to the last game for the champions. Such a weird
What am I
situation.
watching?
Events going out throughout the day is Silic, Chargo, King still just putting on a
Acorn, Agers, and Pollo played like crap today.
His high ground gets dropped down. That's Diego and Ralphie both go down. Polis, Zax, and their trio were able to get credit for that one, but they cannot get any of the loot. Max pull for them, but they're going to use this chance. They got all the information on the right side of the zone, and they're hoping this to be an easy one as they're only 169 above the threshold, losing one of their teammates along the way.
At this point, you know, the whole entire story is just getting tossed up in the air. Who's going to win this game now is the real question. I couldn't tell you. Jackson and Polis here are a 2-man operation, mind you. Wonderful rotate here to get into the front side, but down to just a few materials. Look at the split happening there. 174 on the build, so very desperate. This player walks into the wrong layer, though. Almost gets treated with a double shotgun surprise there.
Trying to float out the backside of zone, trying to catch somebody off guard. You see the low material count as DK, Polar, and Cynics find themselves in the clouds right now. High up on the high ground, 136 damage. It's not going to be a lot in terms of building confidence, but we're so far into the end game. Everybody's going to have to peek out, especially with the zone pulling on over. There goes more shots connecting. There goes the confidence building as they rise up the Storm Surge leaderboard. Even with it deactivating, they know they're in the driver's seat with not too many teams of players that can contest them. Even with Noah plays towards the backside of zone, he's by himself. We need a big moment here for Noah to keep that consistency alive.
Come on, Noah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But Jargu, Silic, and King seem to have full control of the low ground right now. They have the mass, they have the arsenal, they have a lot to work with here, and they are easily our point leaders. By far and large, the most consistent team so far. Noah W plays solo, clutching up a top 10 right now, putting a team on his back, and still cooking right now. 3 eliminations and counting here. Desperate for some material counts, though. He's thinking about it. Is it worth going inside the storm? Don't do it, buddy. There's a player in there for sure. And instead, he goes to the front side here for the rotate, starting to run low on material, but Noah is racking up placements here little by little.
Yeah, half of them already being achieved inside of the top 8. Just a little bit more will start to build that confidence that they can do it in the 5th and final game, whether it's win or consistency. But he's running out of resources. He's immediately just trying to move his way in. Sees Fishy on the other side, but he's not trying to just throw it all away in a high-risk, high-reward
No, you got to play
situation.
placement.
His teams take each other down and gift him more placements.
Noah's so smart. Look at how good he's become. Just over time, you've seen him continuously improve himself, and even now, playing so smart. choosing where to go, rotating beautifully, not taking, excess storm damage here. Fishy's got his eyes on him, but still a top 5 performance nonetheless is a huge story for Noah W. Plays his team to stay on the leaderboard, stay in the conversation. Meanwhile, Cynics, Polar, and Decay, if there are any teams you want to win right now, it's teams with big points already, so that way the lower teams can actually still remain in a chance, if you will, for a top 5. So Jacob, here and now, it's all up to them to win this game here, and it should be all wraps.
Yeah, 3v1. Fishy did some damage on other players, other teams trying to stay alive. He got a couple more points, but I'm not sure he's going to have what it takes here. It's going to need a miracle, which we've seen before through group stages, so I'm not going to be surprised if it happens again. But Fishy getting cut off, gets the knock on the Cynics, but it's not enough. 11 eliminations. Welcome another team to the finals.
And you know what? Respect to Fishy there. That was a crazy clutch for him, too. He was also solo in that end game. Game 4, keeping it so interesting for us. Acorn, Aegis, and Boyo falling early, not earning any points that round is going to really bring us into all eyes on the last game. Take a look at Cynics, Polar, and Decay's victory royale, though. Once again, we find a team securing high ground and the rest of the lobby in such a shambles position. They don't even have an opportunity to get their bearings going. And for Decay, Cynics, and Polar here, it was the perfect storm for them. They just, again, breezed their way to the end game here.
Yeah, you see the work Fishy's trying to put in, but for Cynics, for Polar, congratulations. That is their first FNCS Finals appearance. For DK, this is now going to be his second shot at taking that top spot, but we've got to go ahead and throw it back on over to our analyst to break down all the action and more for Game 4.
It happened again. It happened again. Everyone's just ignoring this high ground. They're just, no one's looking up there. And you know what, for Polar, for Cynics to Decay, they got themselves a VR, right? Once again, you just look up and go, hey, Viv, no one's up there. I guess we should just go ahead and claim that. Let's go ahead and claim a seat on the bus to finals. And what I love is these guys were already basically in that top 5, right? So with a top 5 team going through, that means everybody else is getting pulled up as well. That could have crazy implications on these standings.
Oh, my apologies. I thought he was talking to you, Vivid, but I'm now part of the equation. Yes, congratulations to this trio right here. I mean, it's interesting. When you look at groups 1 and 2, we kind of had a similar situation in group 1 where just no one was looking at high ground. And we even saw today where there was a 30-second period where no one was on high ground. And we're having a little bit of a repeat of that. And I love the adjustment that they make when they're around zone 10. They're so far high up on the high ground, but as they start losing mats, as the zones start pulling even more, they lower their high ground just a little bit to be able to get those eliminations. And it's such a smart way to play high ground, especially when you're just down to a few teams left.
Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned how top heavy this conversation or this competition is today. In group number 3, we've had 2 of the most experienced teams. They've already qualified, right? They're not playing anymore. Those 2 teams specifically were actually part of the 2 teams, couple of teams that were applying so much pressure to the high ground. With those couple of teams gone, this team was able to take full advantage of them being out of the competition, right? Kind of understand that, hey, nobody's probably going to be applying much pressure to us at all, and that's kind of how that one played out for them. Able to keep their mats slow and steady throughout the rest of the game. Easy, clean victory royale for this trio.
That's a really interesting point there, Vivid. Without that pressure, I feel like some of these trios, they can start to get a little more confident, right? Hey, Reed's not going to be breathing down my back. Kanata's not going to be up there, I really like that call out. With that being said, though, only a single game left to go. Today has really flown by. First, a break. When we return, the final game out of group number 3 to give us the last 10 duos from this weekend before the LCQ. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. welcome back. It's good to see you. One game left to go here before we round out this 10 group of trios that are making it to next weekend finals. My stress is through the roof. It's fine. It's fine. Everything is fine. In case you're just joining us, last game number 4 on the day, Polar, Cynics, Decay got themselves a victory royale, which means the next time we'll be seeing them is in those finals happening next weekend. However, there is still much at stake here. We want a victory royale in game number 5 to qualify us to finals, or we need to be in the top 5 in consistency to keep the FNCS dream alive. In that last game, Pollo still looking really strong, right? We're doing okay, but I don't think the job is quite done.
Yeah, no, the job definitely isn't quite done. And you know, a lot of people think that just because they're the reigning champs, they have a shoe-in for the competition. But we saw yesterday just how close some of our top teams can be from being outside of that top 5 through consistency. So Agers, Pollo, Acorn being 135 below damaged or Storm Surge is not the place that they want to be in, especially in game number 4. Game number 5 is what's left over for them, Vivid. Can they make the right changes in that time?
Yeah, kind of crazy. That's going to be the second game on the day where they've actually struggled with Storm Surge. We've tuned in. They have not been in a comfortable spot at all, which is kind of crazy, right? Game number 4, we actually took a look at some of the games from groups 1 and 2, and we're like, oh, Storm Surge, once you get to the later games 4, game 5, it's pretty easy to kind of surpass those thresholds. But yeah, one of our top teams kind of falling short right there. They're still going to find themselves in second place on that consistency leaderboard. And, you know, listen, if yesterday didn't happen with like Clix's trio, right, where we were kind of like, oh, yeah, they're 100% going to qualify, and then it was like 5 points, meaning the difference right there, I would feel a little bit more confident. But we've seen that some of our top trios on the region can make this one very, very close. If they falter in this last game, we might have to have a very hard conversation at the end of the day.
30 points, right? Literally 30 points ahead of 10th place, which is essentially top 5, right? Like, if they make a mistake, 30 points is not safe, but it's Pollo, right? In Pollo, I believe. In Pollo, I trust. It's fine. Everything is fine. We wanted to also highlight this trio, Silic, Jargu, and Kingling, who again are just performing so unbelievably. Kingling right now currently sitting as the #1 damage dealer, dealing the most damage out of group number 3. Man, again, this is looking like a dark horse to me.
100%, 2 6th places and 2 3rd places as well. They've been slowing down just a little bit from what we saw at the start of the day, but if 6th place is slowing down, then that's a pretty good speed to be at. They have no issue with Storm Surge. They're handling these low grounds so well, going on great aggression, taking great fights with good peaks, just slightly off the cuff when it comes to going for that victory royale. You can tell that they're going for that low ground aggression, but there's only so much you can control when it comes to the low ground.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, every single time we tune into them, I kept saying, you know, as we're watching them, I was like, wow, this is like the best trio like in the world right now or something like that. They just always look like they're in such a good position. The rotates look like they're very, very good. Every single time we tune into some of those highlights right there, of course, if they have, you know, good standing as a trio and they're not just like running around with 0 materials, it's like, wow, they're all 3 kind of in a great position right now to look back on players. They're usually towards the front of the moving zones. Honestly doing super, super well in the game. And they could probably take game 5 off right now and still qualify through consistency.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, almost 100 points ahead of Agers, Acorn, and Pollo. But Zeke, what I'm looking at right now, even beyond this top 10, all the way down to 13th place is only 127 points. That is just an 8-point difference between 13th and 8th or 9th place there. You can just see how close. This is the closest we have had for the group stages in North America, Vivid.
Yeah, I mean, crazy stuff. As we go into game number 5 here, right, a little note. Group number 1, it was 198 points to get into that top 5 in consistency. And then group 2, it was 203 on the North American Central region. So keep those numbers in mind. I mean, you know, obviously this group can be a lot different, but yeah, we'll have to keep a close eye on some of our trios.
Okay, I'll stress for everybody. Don't worry, I got it. With one last game to go, it is do or die right here, right now. We do not want to take it to the last chance qualifier. We want to qualify here. How will this go? Only a single interaction for every single trio you see will determine whether they're going to finals, whether they're making it through with consistency, or whether they're taking it to the LCQ. With that being said, for the last time today, casters, take it away.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I'm thinking we're looking at a 180 or so point threshold. I can't put my finger on it, Jacob, but it feels extremely close right now.
Yeah, I really honestly don't care what that point threshold ends up being. I just hope we have a few points separating these teams, because that just means game number 5, last game of the day, the last game of all the group stages, will be entertainment at its finest. And that's all I can really hope for, being on this side of things at least.
Yeah, you can't be mad at 8 points separating you from the top 10. So here we have it, game number 5. Let's jump on one more time.
This is it, the final countdown, the last game of the day, and most importantly, the last chance you have to skip that qualifier, the last chance qualifier, and go through the finals, whether if it's consistency or a big win. And really take note, with the leaderboard this close, if a team like Silic, Jargo, and King on Expo were to find themselves a win, that really opens up the bottom side of the leaderboard even more.
Well, we are going to have to see it play out. This is the first time we've watched this Demon Dojo's fight go down here for Roxanne, Daxi, Tankacito. Game 1, they had a little bit of a highlight, a spotlight put on top of them. Now, it's going to come down to a victory royale for them. Same for Blaster Tricks and Ioba himself as well. That's the beauty of this type of game format, these group stages, those wins still give anyone a realistic chance to make something happen, but it's if you can come out of the mental gutter, most importantly. Takasito's team seem to have the lead here as they've gotten the first knock. Calling for the push now. They're hunting. Daxi got some visuals here. Roxanne plays from the low ground. Beautiful little side angle there.
Yeah, but even without a shotgun, he's at least trying to cause a little bit of a distraction. The rest of the team can follow up just like this. 3v1 numbers game at its finest. Demon Dojo has now been claimed by Tankacito, Daxti, and Roxanne for themselves. They got a lot of time and a lot of space here to try to make something work in this last game. As we continue to look around the teams, some bubble teams inside of it, others going to be outside of it. And this is another one that I'm looking at. They already have 2 eliminations, Monster. They're looking for the solo player who's left alive, just trying to hide his way to get his teammates back the best that he can. Doesn't matter if they have a scanner or anything like that. That'll really change things. It's HQ just hiding behind a pipe or a box inside of that door.
Oh, so it does look like his team was taken out here. We've seen a lot of Ace Cube today, finding himself in all types of situations, but this is the worst by far, given that it's the last game right now. He's just holding on to hope right here so that he doesn't have to be sent to the last chance qualifier. They don't know where he's at, though.
And if they burst through the door on the other side, that's actually a little extra piece of cover for where he's actually hiding at, but they're not really going to give up on the chase. They see a cone, just like some of the other times that we saw today. That would have been a hiding spot, but he actually kind of really learning from years past of Fortnite. And HQ just at the mercy of that full trio on the other side for them to disengage out of Shiny and look for Surge elsewhere. That's going to be his best bet at not only staying alive, but getting his teammates back into the game to have a chance at qualification.
And he's got the right skin, too, for the floorboard matching, so I think he'll be all right. But Amplified, no, they're pretty aware that he has to be somewhere nearby. Either way, we jump in with Acorn, Boyo, and Agers. What did they earn? Like 6 points last game, if that. Very tough game for them, keeping it all the more interesting coming into the last.
I want to know why nobody's contesting them.
Start off so well for them, right? Getting all those farm tags onto Dash and crew. They lost Boyo, but they managed to save him and kind of come back into it. But you know, just one mid-game decision going wrong, and all of a sudden they find themselves in a last-ditch effort to try to make it through. Meanwhile, Edge, Bobby, and Crook here fighting the usual happening at the north side of the map at the moment.
Actually chasing. I don't know how he got separated as a solo. He's trying to make his way back to Boji, his teammate, and he has the piece. Nice shot on the edge, but it's not going to be a real difference maker, especially considering the HP that he does have left, the lack of shields, especially that he's getting jumped on 1v3. Sprite's going to try to do what he can. Boji is now into the mix, so it will slow things down, stop the aggression right in its tracks, allow them to kind of heal up, reassess the situation. 13th versus 15th, Monster. 2 bubble teams choosing to disengage out of this fight. And this is something that we spoke about yesterday. When you're on the bubble, outsider in, does it calm nerves? And I think the difference in that fight versus some of the other games we see might be a little bit of nerves involved.
I was gonna say, respect emoji to the rescue right there. He just jumps in, saves his mans. It could have easily called to leave him, but they had the heart to stick it out. Go down as a team there. Little brief look at the standings here, Jacob, to really give us the bigger picture. Shiny Cat and Fishy's trio both just tied up for 10th and 11th. Anyone kind of in that range, letting you know that they're fighting for top 5 right now.
Fred, Diego, Ralphie. Some speed bumps in their game so far today, but all it takes is one big one, one victory out to change things. It's King, Jargu, Silic. A fight that they've been kind of floating around Magic Mosses and the black market all day long. That's how they've been able to kind of get aggressive, replenish a lot of their loot, and continue to kind of put pressure on a lot of these teams, even with King just getting taken down, 0 shields. The pressure from Fred is there, but he fires back yet again. Just when you think you have the upper hand, he turns things around once more. Now Fred's on the back.
Oh, Fred. No.
He gets back-to-back shots. Now Diego plays is feeling the pain for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is tough for Diego Plays' trio. Like, we've seen them fight a lot today, and you know, things kind of go back and forth. They win some, they've lost more than not, but Jargu, Silic, they have nothing to lose. They've made it. They have 250 plus points. This is the worst team, arguably, that you could be going against right now.
Literally nothing to lose. Essentially all but qualified. You know, they need to play the rest of this one out. Leaderboard needs to finalize. They pick up that elimination and basically push those players outside of the black market near Magic Mosses. But you see a whole nother trio nearby as well. And they're already the ones trying to take the fight to Diego, and he's basically playing ping pong, setting it back on over towards the black market. He's going to go down, but at least Ralphie was able to create enough distance from himself and both of those trios to at least give himself a chance at those reboots, but he has to make sure the zone matches it and pulls south. Otherwise, it's going to need a miracle.
I'm pretty happy with the little pickup right here. Couple points. Bobby, Crook, and Edge are going to start rotating wide around. See if they end up finding some action towards the Whiffy Wharf a little later. We know that there's been tons of fights over there. Here's a team that I've got super close eye on. Noah, W plays Chaos and Kaz's.
Come on, Noah.
Gotta respect their decision. Again, Seaport City was so contested, they gave it up. Took Kanata's draw spot after they qualified early on, and that was the best decision they could have made. From there, they've had some ups and downs, but when they're up, they've been at the very top of the standings. So much so, it's pulled them back to 148 now. And it's all coming down to this last game right here. So no team pushing them early this time around. So it does seem like when they've been uncontested, Jacob, they've managed to turn them into very successful games.
Yeah, games 2, game 4, the ones that really stick out. They got a second place. I believe a top 5 from Noah in that last game as a solo. Really taking that, being a hero to a whole nother level. And even though they're not necessarily qualified where they stand at points, they're giving themselves a chance to give 2 different win conditions. Obviously, win the game is going to be the big one we saw throughout the day, but the leaderboard, the second and most important as we jump on board. Fishy, that last game bursted him up the leaderboard. And if it were to end now, they would win the tiebreaker overall because you see them a little bit higher. It might have been the difference between eliminations, placement overall. They're a team that's, you know, taking these opportunities in stride and trying to run with them.
Gotta take the inch and turn it into a mile, as they say. I like the hold here, though. Look at this vision they have over the overall playing field. Meanwhile, Shiny Cat holding on to their bubble position right now. Rotating out the edge of the storm right now. Not a soul in sight as they're moving east here, marching their way through.
Trains kind of left there, just outside of Foxy. typical position for it in a lot of these lobbies. They can kind of see if anything's left over that they like before they make their way, continue moving in towards zone. Those 2 early eliminations that you see that they have is going to help with feeling confident, not having to kind of play desperate for Surge. But with one team in front of them, they're just going to take a few shots before they continue to rotate towards the north, and that's going to be their team. And maybe a few other teams' strategy, rotate towards the north, cut towards the east, and try to make your way towards south to where you hope there's less congestion on that edge of the zone.
Eulogy, Yusuf Phenom. Still set up right now. This early game, just again, passing by right now. Very calm before the storm here. Really looking like, Jacob, this is gonna end up heating up really fast. Hearts are going to be broken, too. We have so many teams within that top 10 range right now.
Almost feels like if you watched EU Group 3 earlier, the point spread through consistency was absolutely insane. I think it was like less than 10 points separated first on that leaderboard all the way down to 5th. And it's looking like that could be the difference maker here. 1 elimination, staying alive 1 placement longer. Chamonix Prom Sieges looking down. That's Chris Wager trying to leave Crime City. Kind of staggered so far back, trying to utilize as much as they can from the black market. But as soon as they see a team up there, they realize that's no longer going to be an option. They have to try to find what they need elsewhere.
Women's Dojo team still in the game. Sprite, Boji, Core maintaining control of the pump power position right now. Gonna bait out Tankecito's trio here into a bit of a skirmish. Asking shall receive those shots that are coming in. Their entire foundation gets broken down. And look, while all that's happening, Core's just like, you know, keeping his team situated, farming for mats, picking up what he can.
I like that too. Just no wasted time, essentially. Even if you can't find the surge tags, he's making sure to continue farming up. The extra resources, taking the next stone. You saw the extra minis getting tossed on over, trying to converge all their loot and resources into one location. Teaks, Backtalk, Scuffies, just south of the Shining Span Bridge, hoping that the zone continues to pull over in this favor. Hey, and it looks like one of those zones that we saw, I believe, yesterday, to where it kind of ended over towards Seaport City, and that's where they're kind of hedging their bets and really kind of banking that where the zone continue to pull in this favor. And you can be really telling of their strategy if they take the top side of that bridge like we've seen so many teams do through the weekend.
Still got him on the move right now, though, for Silic, Jargo, and King. One of the last to leave the zone. Any team in their way has really got to be careful.
Silic's about to go down.
The picture before that they're relatively punched in. They know they're made it. It's just a matter of them kind of flexing for the standings right now. This is for pride right now. This is for practice at this point. All in preparation of the finals. I like this rotate too, kind of playing super outskirts here, but there's a trio there, so shots start to come in. Meanwhile, we get to catch up right now with Poya and Acorn. What's going on here?
Why is Poya so low?
Seems like Poya doesn't have any white heals to work with. What do you think they're waiting for?
Yeah, with their white heals, if they don't have like a med kit or anything like that, probably use the splashes on the next rotate. There's no reason to use them early as long as you're playing carefully if you are Poyo. So you kind of use it, get the HP up right before rotation, and that way you get that little bit of a speed boost with the gold splashes. But they're already in zone, not much rotation for them to do. And you're seeing everybody towards the pump power becoming more and more stacked as time goes on. At first it was 3, then it was 4. Now I can probably see 5, 6, maybe even 7 teams all trying to make their way in towards pump power. And what some teams thought would be a slower rotation going north the way that they have all the way to east is not so slow of a rotation as they once thought, because so many teams mirroring and mimicking that rotation.
This is the beauty of like the randomized zones right here. Pump power all of a sudden becoming an attraction point where all up until today there was rarely any action, not like this, not at this scale here. So a much different dynamic starting to take its place here. But what we do see is that little piece of those snowy white mountains starting to come into play. So we already know those are going to be critical positions starting to be claimed by the teams that are getting there early. talking about those teams here.
Who made it through on West?
Ease our way in.
Rays,
Polis,
Vanillas,
Jackie, and Zach
X-Spawn,
have a little bit of
Source,
this high
Baka,
ground spot
Pump,
right here as we highlight the team set up
Phoenix,
at the mountains.
Kino.
And we like this type of
Soaks.
positioning right here. Near center, still not quite all the way. However, one of the stronger spots. And if you bring your focus down to that map, you can see that they're actually interested in getting a little bit to the middle as well. Little team in the distance there. And Polis's team ever so patient here, just waiting for opportunity here and now. And this is where the pressure really starts to become real. The mid-game starts to heat up. Even the game, the dusk is starting to settle here. So the environment is starting to become all but reality for Chaos. Noah plays in Kaz's. Think about their journey. A difficult game one. An even stronger game two. And now in the final moments, they are just trying to find their chance here to earn about 50 points or so. Surge still hasn't warned the lobby just yet, so everyone knows kind of where they're setting at right here. But look at this. Let's jump in with a big rotate here. Pump Power pushed out of the zone, and now it's time to go south. 4 teams on the move here, but Eggy's trio here and Nyx, Azuri start to move first.
What the?
They're going to be trailing behind, just 13 damage below. Make it 30 below now, too. So pressure starting to really build up for these trios. Shots coming in from the distance. It's Andrew's team, like we mentioned. Anyone who's got those high ground spots, we're going to have a major advantage on this rotate here. And look at this. Mock just trying to do his best here to lead his team to victory now. Love this outskirts rotate right underneath the islands here, but they're moving straight into King's trio. Definitely have to be careful nonetheless. Let's take a look at Muck what's happening right now. Can they find any type of tag here? You got to put yourself in their shoes. You're sitting there. You're on the bubble. You're on the line, and you're below the surge. This is where the nerves start to really kick in here. You can feel the opportunity just slipping away slowly. And then you have Sharky's trio starting to target you here on the rotate. And now reality starts to really set in. That surge is going to start to become active here.
So
they're going to be forced to kind of put the sprite down. Have to find any kind of opportunity to take a fight here. ASAP. There goes the rotate. 100 below now. Surge is active. Continuously ticking here.
Blake missed it.
Still
Brilliant missed it.
Where are all the players? His teammate Addix finds someone over on the outskirts. He's trying to make a push up there. And
Quanti didn't make it.
But it's not enough so far. It's Tofi's trio. Muck tries to go for high ground. Tofi's in there, putting up a good fight. Azuri shows up. Tofi answers a huge shot onto Azuri and Addix there. They get the finish. And this is bowl cut Tyler. Skittles and Tofi out of nowhere. Remember, they have had such a difficult time fighting their way out of early game contested round after round, and all of a sudden now, look at what's happening here. They have a chance to play for endgame. If this team can go from 0 to hero, that'll be the Cinderella story for them. And it's all unfolding one step at a time here. This is the biggest showing we've had of Tofi and Tyler. Look at the rotate, beautifully done. Meanwhile, Muck somehow has survived the storm surge. This is all starting to come together for him. His entire tournament is on the line right now. 135 points earned and no shield now. 160 below. Still, there's a stretch between him and the safety of the zone. There's players everywhere. There's shots going down. He's going to have to find his way into a box. He's going to have to find some tags here or be sent back to the lobby. No one wants to see that happen. Even with the med miss, he's got to get into a fight. He's got to find a chance to get some damage here. And look at this, unfortunate too. The zone pulls back at him. A wasted med miss here as he's forced into a more safer position there. And the storm surge turns off for a couple of moments. So just a brief moment, a brief opportunity for him to just go ahead and hang out for a second here. look at what's happening here. As Muck is just eyeing up Blaze. This is a huge chance for him to at least get some siphon. All he needs is a tag, but no! Someone else snipes the shot from the side, and Muck loses this chance, and what do? You see all that loot. He's eyeing it up. He's thinking about it. He's starting to weigh his options. He's saying, wait a second. I have a couple heals. I have some whites. I could take a little bit of damage. Is it worth the risk? Is it worth jumping into? Fishy starts to take a fight here, and all of a sudden now his back's against the wall. Look at all of these bubble teams here. Weighing in the options. Two-man fight. Fight breaks out, and no! The trades happen. It's all up to Xavi now by himself here. Forced to rotate to the front side. Sees his teammate down. Do you go for it is the real question here. Teammate drops all the heals here. The extra mats as well. He's got plenty to work with. And look at that metal. At this point, you might just have to leave him. And yes, he does have to ditch him. Forced to rotate as a solo now. Needs to box up, pop this chug jug here.
This is going to be a great opportunity for them to try to stay alive. You thought I was going to let you take this one all by yourself. The Mythic Sentinel is really going to be the difference maker if he can kind of keep it intact. The zone is on his back. Chug Jug is there, but he's only going to get a moment here to try to keep himself alive, but he peeks through to a full trio monster. Instantly go down. His chances, he has to sit and wait to see how the rest of the lobby plays out.
Listen, it is going down right now. We have too many teams on the line. Too many stories. Pressure starting to build here. We even still have Boyo, Aegis, and Acorn. I almost forgot the fact that they needed to show up, Jacob. They needed to perform here and now. And the quick looking at the standings here showing you that Fishy's going to be the first team inside of the top 10 to fall now, to crumble under the pressure of this endgame. And this, Jacob, is an incredible endgame. Look at where it's finishing.
Yeah, you see them on top. This is a team that was outside of the bubble throughout most of the day, and now they have that chance over Shining Expanded. This is something I mentioned early on in the game. If you're one of these teams that can position on top of this, and the zone allows it to happen, it is almost a picture-perfect finish from a team that wants to do more than just take part of consistency. They want to try to get the win, but with the zone pulling further and further away, they have to make that leap down low to the low ground, but they instantly build their way back up to maintain it.
And look, Yusuf really trying to make sure he's holding the ultimate high, but no, starts to get pressured. And this is a huge throw for him, unfortunately caught out. And look who it is. Noah W plays, and his trio seizes the most opportune chance here.
Let's go, Noah!
You wouldn't have thought they could have lost this positioning. And all of a sudden now, it is theirs who is up top here. Jacob, what in the world is happening here?
And because of Noah's phenomenal plays, remember games 2, the clutch in game 4, they're in contention where they don't even necessarily need that big win. They just need to hold on, grab a few more placement points, get those eliminations if they can. Down below, not necessarily the same spot, but Pollo, Agers, and Acorn, they may have had a blunder in that last game, but they are confident they can pick up the pace. They dive off the bridge into the water, trying to give themselves a safer spot as Acorn just gets beamed on the way down. It will continue to move over in their favor, so that might have been a blessing in disguise for them.
This is actually incredible. Pola somehow still alive here. We've seen so much of him here on the day. We're trying to question whether or not their team had enough to go ahead and push it through one more time, and they're just holding on here. Pola's trying to clutch up for his team at this point. Oh gosh, let's Boyo, Aegis, and Cole just slip on by there. Meanwhile, on the high ground, the ultimate height. I can't imagine that other teams are not going to fight for high ground in this final game when it all matters here. When the Victory Royale is separating them from this lobby and the grand finals. Meanwhile, Agers, Boyo, and Acorn have to rack up eliminations if they really want to pad their way into that 200-point threshold. That's just going to be the first to fall. A nice pickup for them here. That's only their second elimination of this game, really showing you how they've managed to pace their way through, taking their time and not trying to make any mistakes.
Yeah, and they didn't even make any drastic changes from game to game. They were just playing exactly how they practiced up until
Dude, Noah is crushing height right now. Dude is connected all over the place.
Once you get into the top 8, that's at least half of them for your efforts.
And you can tell
Amplify is going down. Shiny. Okay.
type of high ground hold. They did not select
Oh.
base at all. Chaos is
And
on
there.
the zone for a second. They're gonna have to give this one up just ever so slightly. Meanwhile, on the low ground, Polis is still alive, making his way inside the top 10, narrowly escaping eliminations right there. He sees players all around him. He's just gonna hunker down now. Base down. Boyo has caught him out, and they take him down. And that's a huge, huge refresh for him now. Not only that, pushing him closer and closer to 200 points.
Yeah, elimination points, placement points by taking him down because he was a solo. And immediately, they grab those materials and drop to the front side of zone. Phenom trying to do the same thing. We saw the disaster that struck this team. They're hoping Lightning cannot strike him twice. Phenom able to get a knock in the backside of zone, and he cleans it up as well. He may not be able to grab the loot, but he grabs another elimination on the Shiny Cat. As a solo, he doesn't matter. He's just trying to keep the game in his own hands.
And don't forget, Shiny's Cat's team was also on the top 10 hold right there. Morsey's one of the few left in live. Can he out-survive it? But no! He falls.
Poyo's gonna win this one.
It's down direct competition here and now, but he's got the attraction points of Ager's trio down low. Ager's team has got the points that they need. They're cooking with gas here now. Poyo starting to really get active here. 6 elims, make it 7 as they catch Dash. Veer and Seek here on the run. Phenoms jumps up to the next layer, giving up the low ground. Agers now has a chance here to go ahead and just recycle this Chug Jug potentially. Meanwhile, Noah W plays is still alive as well. Takasito is here.
Oh my God!
Is popping
Wow!
now, and he is fighting for
Come on, Noah!
3 versus the previous season champions. Boyo, Agers, and Acorn have managed
Ah!
back here in the last game.
That's gotta be enough.
Second,
He has to make it.
making their way through the victory lap now. Hello, Veer. Send them on through. Agers, Boyo, and Acorn. Keep it close.
And just keep in mind, though, Monster, because they were so high up on that leaderboard, it just moved everything up. A team has been gifted that opportunity to go through on consistency. Such an amazing performance for so many of these teams. Obviously, Agers, Acorn, Poyo winning the game.
Amplify probably made it.
Adapting on the fly. The solo clutches were absolutely phenomenal, and it really, Monster, it really feels like it's gonna go down to the wire. I hope we don't got no tiebreaker scenarios, that's for sure.
It's not a shot. Look at this perspective for Acorn, Agers, and Boyo. I mean, talk about bringing it down to the final moments. And here they said, you know what, we got to lock in. We're champions. There's not a chance we're not making it through here. And they did it in the best showing possible. And this was an extremely difficult endgame. But you have to give all the credit to Noah as well. Noah's team secured that high ground position, allowing them to have a chance, a moment in the end there. Shout out to Agers, Acorn, and Boyo. The Game 5 victory. Coming out of Game 3, you know, just putting a little ribbon, a bow on it, if you will, Jacob, for us here.
Now, it's really exciting to see because the amount of speed bumps, their adventure that they went throughout the day today, even falling early in that last game, number 4, it's just impressive that they can kind of dust themselves off, pick themselves up. There were zero worries for them throughout the day. And I was looking at some of the Twitch chats during the break, Monster. They say, how are they struggling in a lobby like this? Guess what? To them, it's just practice. Now they have their eyes on the real thing, which is finals.
Yeah, that's right. Well, listen, this has been a wonderful Majors weekend for us. So much action here. It's going to wrap it up for MDF and, of course, Jacob here. It was great. Zeke, bring us on home.
Thank you guys so much. Fantastic cast on the day. Now, please rest your voice. We've got finals next week to get hyped up on. Man, Acorn, Agers, Poyo finally getting, you know, it's better to get it than not at all. You know, let's go ahead and shake the whole standings up, you know, because going in, as our casters talked about, they were already in that top 5, right? So now these leaderboards are a little crazier than initially anticipated because with them moving up and out, now we could be looking at another trio to kind of just make their way in.
Such a night and day performance from this trio, and it's something that we were expecting out of them, just not expecting them to do it in game number 5, but just playing box to box, using such a good job of making sure that their items and loadout is utilized properly. Acorn, Agers, and Poyo, you know, they really just wanted to give us a show vivid. They wanted to make sure that we had 5 full games of them.
Yeah, and I mean, just strictly at face value and not, taking 3 hours to go ahead and VOD review some of the games right here. Remember, in game number 3, I was like, there was a couple things I didn't like, not prioritizing the front side of the moving zone and sometimes getting disconnected as a trio. This game, every single time we tune into them, they were kind of focusing on their positions, and a big attribute of that was actually Acorn kind of going ahead and kind of leaving Agers and Pollo back on the backside of their tarp to actually find some of these eliminations. Kelly, you talked about it at the start of the day. We saw trios throughout some of the other groups. They adapted instantly from game to game. And I feel like this game kind of highlighted, Acorn, Agers, and Pollo fixing up some of the mistakes that they were making on earlier in the day, cleaning it up from game number 5. And listen, a match like that ahead of finals next weekend, this trio is once again looking very, very clean and pristine.
Ooh, I'm so excited, man. I'm just thinking, like, groups 1, 2, and 3. The fact that we have finally know, like, which trios are coming out of those groups. We still have the LCQ, of course, but just think about some of those big names we get to see finally come together under a single lobby next week. Man, it's exciting. Okay, let's start to talk about the victory royales. Who won through on today? Maybe you're tuning in super late. Happy Easter. Thank you so much for hanging out and watching the tail end of the show. But in game number 1, it went on over to Kanata, Bolts, and Sphinx. Game 2 is Recoup and Curly. Game number 3, Aoxy, Jojo Fishy, and Pikes. Game number 4, Cynics, Polar Decay. And finally, right here, Agers, Acorn, and Pollo get themselves the victory royale to close out the day. So, naturally, the next question becomes, okay, Zeke, nice VRs, that's dope, but there's still a top 5 in consistency, right? Yes, there is, Timmy. Don't worry. We will get to that as soon as we can. What do you guys think after those 5 games? I mean, I just am so excited for finals. Like, the hype is building.
100%. The story that we've seen, not even just from group stages, but all the way back to the play-ins, all the way back to when Season 2 started, has just gotten me so excited for these Major 2 finals. We have so many incredible teams, so many incredible storylines that kind of need to figure out what happens at the end of Season 2, There's just so much going on in North America Central, and only 3 spots to the Global Championships, Vivid. So much is on the line.
Yeah, a lot has happened, right? We now have 30 teams qualified. I got to say, the highlight of the day for me, I always like a statement, especially leading into the finals. It's like Group 3, you kind of have that little bit of an because you are the last group, so this will be the one that we kind of remember going into the finals. But Kanata's trio coming out and winning game number 1, I feel like that was really a statement for them in that regard. They're looking very, very good going into the finals. Probably my favorite moment of the day.
I have a favorite moment, and that's got to be the fact that Noah Plays made it in through our top 5. Let's take a look at the top 5.
Yeah.
Consistency. I am so impressive. Of course, talk about all of these.
Noah.
In just a moment. I just want to highlight Noah Plays paired up with Chaos and Kaz. Even that final few moments, man, we saw so many clutch moments out of Noah today. Even in this last game, to just be 1v3.
He played his butt off.
Acorn and Pollo to make it as far as 3rd.
Dude was clutch all day.
A solo. The impact, the solo clutch points alone are crazy.
Yeah, those solo clutches from Noah was absolutely phenomenal, but also watching Noah, Kaz, and Chaos on the low ground, grabbing Elim after Elim has been so impressive as well. Regardless of if they're playing passively or aggressively, Noah, Kaz, and Chaos definitely seems to have a plan in mind.
Yeah, I love watching this trio as well. And listen, for anybody that kind of is watching FNCS throughout the years, may not recognize Chaos is actually going to be Chaos Gaming. I remember his initial pop-off with the augment, right? That mythic pistol that we loved seeing seasons ago, right? That pop-off kind of happened. So love the storylines kind of coming out right there. But yeah, what a day for this trio. Great find throughout, some of these games. Noah W Plays also picking up the most eliminations on the trio, giving him the highlight right there. But qualifying the finals, it's got to feel good.
Absolutely. And of course, Silic, Jargu, and Kingling. I mean, man, King, I don't even, I wish that I could just shake your hand because, like, man, you were insane today. That trio was insane today, but I'm getting word there's actually something a little more insane, and that is an interview we have lined up with none other than Kanata, who came out in game number 1. What's up, Kanata? It's great to see you, man. How you doing?
Man? I'm doing great, man. How you doing, man?
Kanata, I mean, anytime we see you play, bro, it is always electric. I'm so thankful that you're here with us. So, bro, how does it feel It's not just 25 out of 25. It is 26 out of 26 finals
26
appearances.
out of
How does it
26.
feel?
It feels, like it's like another day in the office, but not really. It's like you gotta lock in sometimes, but like today we did really just lock in. Like this trio, my trio Sphinx and Bolts. Like when we first formed, it was really looking bad at the start, right? Like we were not looking great, everything. But I really do believe us playing bad at the start, not qualifying for like these eval tournaments and everything, got us locked in. We voted, we talked it over, and especially, I want to have a huge shout out to Dignitas because we are also all boot camping in the same house right now, all zero paying.
Okay.
So vibes are high. We're all together. Like right after that win, literally got together, hyped us, like, you know what I'm saying? It was all good.
I love that. I love that so much. Kanata, for me, what's so hype is that this is now the second major in a row where you win the first game out of your groups. What is it about this stage? What is it about just going for the victory royale that you do so well?
I mean, one thing that was super important, like last season was a different meta, right? It was mask season, so we had height and we played it really high. But this season, we realized that height was more griefed, and it was like a lot of teams were looking up for it, and even in the other heats as well, height, if you held it first moving, it was really hard to win the game. But later on in the game, if you looked up at it and they had no mats or they were shambles, it was way easier to go up and take it and win the game later on in the game, which is literally what we did,
Yeah, I'd love to hear that from you guys. You mentioned right there when you guys first formed as a trio, the vibes weren't high, not necessarily feeling confident. All right, so you come out, group number 3, you win game number 1, turn face towards finals now next weekend. How's the confidence feeling? How's the trio feeling going into that?
It's feeling a lot better. I feel like at first we had a lot of miscommunications, not a lot of synergy or chem built up because we just formed. But after today, we all locked in, did everything that we were talking about, playing off each other, playing together. And for next week, I'm really confident for this trio. I want to call LAN as soon as possible, and I definitely do think this trio right here, we can easily qualify for LAN next week in Grand Finals.
Okay, speaking of LAN, I mean, bro, you're already going to a LAN. FNCS Pro-Am.
Yes, sir.
Duoed up with Stable Ronaldo.
Yes, sir.
Can we expect Durag Nada there? Maybe even also finals next week?
He's gonna be there. Let's just say that. He's gonna be there.
That's awesome. Are you excited about Pro-Am?
Oh, I'm so excited because I know there's a break for tournaments or FNCS for the next month and a half or whatever. And then I'm gonna go to Pro-Am, have fun with Ron, of course, trying to win that. Then I'm gonna go on a little 2-week vacation to Korea, just chill out. So if I qualify LAN this season, vibes are gonna be all-time high,
I love that, bro. Well, of course, thank you so much for your time, man. It is such an honor and a pleasure to talk to you. Where can the fans find you?
At Kanata on Twitter, Kanata _ on Twitch, and Kanata on YouTube. Those are all my socials.
Love it. Kanata, best of luck. We can't wait to see you again in next week's finals.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. See you then.
Hey, Kanata's always great, man. Gotta love him.
Love the energy.
Oh, man. Yeah. It's just always so much fun. He's such a character and in the best ways possible. And the fact that his gameplay backs it up. Dude, I love Kanata. He's so great. Guys, let's take a look at the standings before we kind of start wrapping up this show. We have our first 30 trios going to the finals. As we start to kind of look over, remember we have the top, the 1 through 5. That's who got the victory royales. Then from 6 through 10, that's basically our top 5 in consistency. Overall, how did you guys feel about group number 3?
Oh man, it was chaotic, and I feel like that's something that we've seen in last major and even over in EU, where groups 1 and 2 are a bit more standard Fortnite, but group 3 just always throws us for a loop, Vivid.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy stuff. I mean, why don't we go ahead and talk about all the groups in general? I feel like we learned a lot about the meta right there, and I'm happy